People are the worst, aren't they? I've never had road rage as bad as I have since I've turned like 30. I honestly, people on the road, like, why do they exist? Why are other people on the road?
Why do
I mean,
Just
to
people
people
get
just
for like
exist?
me,
to,
and
to get from A to B,
they just stay at home, mate. It's so much easier.
mate. It's not like when I go swimming in the morning and you get pool
Everything gets
rage.
delivered to you now. There's literally no reason to leave the house.
Earthquake, Davies, is it connecting? So of course Jose's going to be bloody last again as always.
Classic Jose.
Classic Jose.
Yay! What up,
Hey, birdie.
dogs?
Uh,
Hello.
how is your Little Rock hotel experience, Ben?
Ba-ba-da.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
that does look nice. I think I'm going to really struggle with this episode because like half the shows that I've said are cancelled. I can't remember any of them.
I mean,
Like
it's a
Oh,
good.
good
I
thing we've
suppose
got
that's
a
one of the
document.
reasons why they were cancelled.
We played in Graceland yesterday. We did a show at Graceland, and we got a private tour of Elvis's fucking like house and stuff. And she funneled like the tour guide funneled us down this corridor. There's a place called the Jungle Room, which is like all like plants everywhere, and there's a waterfall and stuff. And we go down this little corridor, and at the end, she's like, "Just go down that corridor and take a right at the end and go through the door." And the guys all fucking like went down there, door was locked. And she was like, and we were like, "Oh, door's locked." And she had to like get past us. And as she was walking past us, she was like, "Oh, I see, I've got you caught in a trap." And I was like,
I
Elvis Presley puns. This is fucking
like it.
amazing.
All right, guys, I apologize for my sexy voice. I'm feeling under the weather today.
I was gonna say you do sound really sexy. I thought when you turned
You've
up,
gone. If you've gone full Phoebe. From,
Yeah, I was,
Sing Smelly
yeah.
Cat.
No, smelly cat, smelly.
Hi, and welcome to a very special episode of the We Need a Roads podcast. I'm your host, Annoyed Neil, and I've assembled my avenging co-hosts today as we rant, shout, and generally get very angry as we give you our top 10 cancelled shows of all time. I'm joined by the disputatious David,
hey all, howdy all.
the belligerent Ben,
I don't know what David just did, but hi.
just plain mad Marie, and
David
the
is
jaded Jose. And yes, I realise it doesn't rhyme after I wrote it, but it had two J's in it.
Hello.
Well,
Why
that
did
was.
why did you say that like you're answering a phone to a number you didn't recognize? Hello?
The jaded Jose thing was like,
Oh,
okay,
it was a bit. It was a bit, Ben.
a bad bit. See, they both start with B. There we go.
Oh no, I got that. Yeah.
Anyway, because there is nothing more piss-coningly annoying than discovering a great show in which you get fully invested with the world and the characters, and then some corporate dickweed using metrics the general public are not privy to decides to cancel it because it either costs too much money or, heaven forbid, a show gets better after its first season and becomes a great show. Parks and Rec. Look, basically,
yeah.
it's all Lost's fault because since Lost, we live in a world where unless your show is a smash hit out of the gate, there is very little chance it gets a second season. But with the advent of streaming and every company in the world looking for IPs and content, yes, I feel dirty saying both those words, we briefly had a golden geek age where all our favourite books, games and comics were adapted into, some pretty decent or great good TV shows and movies. And of course, then they all got cancelled. So we're basically back where we started 20 years ago, where if you aren't a success straight away, then you're basically done for. And with the impossible to know metrics of streaming, even being a number one show worldwide for a month is no guarantee of a second season. So actually, we're in a worse place because streaming companies don't actually have to give us a reason, unlike in network days where they can only fall back and blame the viewing figures. And breathe, Neil. So, everyone, I'm
What to say.
going to ask you this question. Why do you think shows have been cancelled? Marie, why do shows get cancelled?
I mean, there's no, I think, logic to some of this, but I think there's a few reasons. Number one, I do think there is a marketing issue, which I've seen with a few shows, and a couple of ones that are actually been on our list, where the marketing has just like been non-existent. And in today's, there is just so much shit out there. Like, you have to be able to market your show, and you have to be, and it's not just long form it's short form. You have to have like a trailer on TikTok or Instagram. It's now short form as well. So I think marketing, and then a second, and not, I mean, this is not, and my second reason, and I think the majority of my personal list for that is it's just too gay. Like a lot of stuff on my list is shows with queer characters in it, and lo and behold, they always get canceled after season one. And I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but I do see a pattern here. Like, especially my personal number one pick. Like, I want that show back so badly.
And we will find it out in a little while. And David, why does stuff get canned?
People just stop watching now. I think it's probably, or it's too expensive to make in the first place. It's all like it's everyone's here. It's all going to be the pretty similar thing, and it's all going to be connected. And like Marie's thing, where the marketing issues come into viewership, they'll create a really expensive show, or perhaps they want to promote another expensive show, like on Netflix. So they want to do, let's say, Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's going to cost a hell of a lot more than doing this show over here. But we're going to get more viewers for this show, potentially, than redoing this show and not getting that many at all. So I'm going to pump money into this show, and we'll have to make budget cuts somewhere. That show's got to go, even if it was popular, because imagining Avatar will be it's a bigger IP, get more money, more viewership. That's my idea. People will stop watching, essentially.
People stop watching. Ben, why? Why?
Why? I think obviously the points that have just been made are very, very very true. But I also think there's an element of it happens in the music industry quite a lot where you get something quite similar that you've been working. And let's say like Project A is something that a studio has been working on for years and years, or for ages. They've pumped a load of money into it that they want to get back. Then someone comes along and comes up with Project B, which is very similar but a better concept. So a studio will buy it. Contractually, they're obligated to make that first season, and then they shelve it so it doesn't compete with their other property. I think that is something that I cannot prove. I know it definitely happens in the music industry, and I'm wondering how much it happens in TV. It's either that or Aliens.
Nice.
I was about to say, ooh, a very logical argument, and then
Yeah,
You know
Aliens
me.
is very logical. Very logical.
I like to undo my hard work by being a complete fucking idiot.
And that brings us to, no, that's a bad segue. I was going to say that brings us to Jose. Which I did not mean, my friend. I did not mean.
I mean, I would have
Burn.
taken it.
Okay.
So first of all, I'd like to shout out for the YouTube viewers how sexy Ben is posing right now. Look at that. He's all comfortable. Look at that.
You guys are all at work. I'm just having fun.
There we go. So I think everyone has made a good point about budget and viewership, in which I think Netflix and a lot of streaming, when they dump a show out, we get a ton of viewers right away, but then it slowly tapers off. So metrically, there's no reason to hold on, even though in the beginning it did really well. But something that I learned when I did research on more of the old style cable shows, and it's something that we probably would have never thought of, or I didn't think of at all, was executives.
Dickweeds.
Apparently, executives and even heads of studios can change regularly. And a lot of times what these guys do is they're like, well, this was something the other executive or the other head of the shows put in. It's not mine. I don't care if it's doing well. I'm going to get rid of it and have my own legacy. And a lot of times shows will be canceled because of that. And it's something that we can't do anything about because someone's ego is getting in the way.
Corporate malfeasance, cocaine, and dickweeds.
Yeah. So I was really shocked, but it makes a lot of sense that in Hollywood, that's kind of what can control a show's livelihood, unless it's like a smash hit. A lot of the shows that we liked, first seasons, especially Fox, they never hold on to shows very long. And so, like, yes, we see the promise, but unfortunately, a majority of the audiences never did. And so for the shows that we enjoyed, they were cult followings because there just wasn't enough ratings. And so these shows on paper did deserve to die. It was just sad that they were never allowed to grow.
To your point, really quickly, the one of my favorite shows of all time as a kid was a show called Red Dwarf, and
Ugh.
Red Dwarf season 1 was supposed to get cancelled, but the guy in like the head of BBC Comedy got fired, and as a fuck you to the next guy coming in, commissioned season 2 of Red Dwarf as one of the last things he did. So it actually works in reverse as well as like negatively. So Red Dwarf then ran and became successful off the back of this guy's fuck you, I've been fired, I'm going to throw a bunch of budget contractually at this show that's failing.
That's awesome.
We'd have never got Rimmerworld.
Yay.
Honestly, I think I posted that a little while ago. I was like, it's not sacrosanct, but this would be one of the few shows or books that I'd love to see a big budget remake of Red Dwarf. Like it with the proper budget, like a Disney level budget behind it. Imagine what they could do, because you go back to the original books and they are so amazing. And BBC, it just didn't have the scope to do it. Sadly, it never has. Even when it went to Dave. I mean, yeah, Dave didn't have the budget either, but it was still good. It was still good in places. Yeah, I agree with basically everything you've all said. The only thing I would add on to that as well is there's just so many shows now, and like you say, and a brilliant show can get lost. I mean, it's a running joke that there's this brilliant, no one watches anything on Apple because it's on Apple, because no one's got Apple. And yet Apple don't even seem to care that no one's got Apple, because they're a electronics company and not really a TV studio. And so they, it's kind of this weird thing where they're not actually that fussed about it and rarely cancel anything. Although they did cancel Time Bandits, you fuckheads, which I really enjoyed.
Are you serious? Already?
Yeah.
Already. It's the most recently cancelled show we're going to be talking about on here, man.
Son of a bitch.
So we are now going to move on to explaining the ranking system. So we each submitted our own top 10 lists, with number 1 getting 10 points, down to number 10 getting 1 point. These totals are then added together using the power of maths to give us our overall list. And in cases where shows have the same amount of points, in other words, a tie, we're going to mention all of the shows, because the point of the episode is to shine a light on so many great shows that were snuffed out before their time. So get your snacks, get ready to hopefully discover some great shows you never heard of, and then get furiously angry that they've been cancelled. Now, obviously, there are a metric shit tons of shows we could mention in this episode, and this episode's definitely going to go long enough anyway. And somehow, we had a post on our Twitter go semi-viral a few weeks back. Now, usually I put out a post asking for comments on the episode we're going to be talking about. We say, we'll read those comments for a shout out on the episode. What I didn't realise when I jumped on the Netflix cancels trend hashtag the other day was the massive amount of replies we were going to get. And at this point, the post was viewed over 6,500 times, and we had over 90 comments. Clearly too many to read out. Yes, like I promised. So I've hit upon this solution. We're going to read out any comments that didn't make our list. So if you mention a show that we're going to talk about later, we're not going to read out your comment because you've mentioned the show. We're going to talk about it. But first, I do have to address there were 4 shows that we got more comments about than anything else. And the first one is Dead Boy Detectives. We had so many pissed off Dead Boy Detectives fans commenting. And I think one of the most piss-ridden factors for them was the lateness of the cancellation, because season 2 had already been written and was just ready to go. First comment I'm going to read out here is from Cam at 42 miles per hour, and they said, this show had a dedicated fandom, spent 3 weeks in Netflix's top 10 category, and the second season was already written before it got cancelled. I've watched a lot of shows that have gotten cancelled, but this cancellation is the most baffling by far. So, guys, did any of you watch Dead Boy Detectives?
I watched the first few episodes, and then unfortunately I got kicked off of my mom's Netflix because they caught on to the password sharing.
If you hadn't, though, would you have continued?
I would have continued. I mean, because it's the same universe as the Sandman, and I really like the Sandman series, and Dead Boy Detectives is right in my alley. Once again, I want to point out it's a queer show that got canceled. So after 1 season, so it also falls in that category. But I also thought it was good. The production value was good. The casting was great. It reminded me of another show that's on our list that got canceled after 1 season, which always made me a little bit worried. But yeah, I understand why the fan base is furious.
Before you carry on, I just want to say, in your beautifully written notes here, you said that it spent 3 weeks in Netflix top 10. I've always been wildly fucking suspicious of Netflix own rated top 10 thing. Yeah. It's like Netflix says it's in Netflix's top 10 of a poll we did in the fucking office. I don't think that's a very good system of you see stuff that comes out there. I think it was one of the fucking Batman movies. One of the maybe the Snyder Batman v Superman. And it was nowhere in the top 10. It had just been dropped. And I was like, people are fucking watching that. I know all my friends that have just gone and watched it. And it's I was like, okay, so maybe I haven't got that many friends. But I don't believe that Netflix is like, when I see something in Netflix's top 10, I'm just like, fuck you, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Don't buy it whatsoever.
I think, especially with Netflix, this is our new thing, so therefore everyone's watched it, even if they haven't, because we're going to make you watch it. And whatever goes on the homepage is what they've been paid the most to put on there.
And there's a couple of things in our list that I've seen that were number one in that top 10. And I think it's just a way for them to like move units. Yeah, they're like, it's not actually a top 10. It's just that's advertising for them.
Yeah.
But even if that is true,
Tiger King.
Tiger King. I think everyone watched Tiger King during
COVID.
COVID.
It was COVID.
It was COVID.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And for the record, Ben, we are your friends. Just want to let you know that.
So back to Dead Boy Detectives. Yeah, I watched the first two, I think, and I saw like the link to Sandman. I was like, oh yeah, this is really cool. I'm going to keep watching this, and then I just didn't. And I think the reason I stopped watching it was because I was still so annoyed at Lockwood and Co. getting cancelled, which in genre was so similar a show to Dead Boy Detectives. And I just didn't want to invest my time watching another show that I was like, this is so going to get cancelled. You know, like you say, it's a queer show and it's young adult fantasy. And they just commissioned them and then cancelled them. So I was waiting for the season 2 announcement. I was like, okay, if it gets a second series, I'm going to go back and watch it. And I know why I know my guess at why they commissioned this when they had Lockwood and Co. there and cancelled that is because Dead Boy Detectives is a Neil Gaiman one, and obviously they're working with him on Sandman season 2. So, you know, Jonathan Stroud, who wrote Lockwood and Co., they're not doing anything else with him. So it's kind of, keep the author happy in a way. If we'll do this property of yours.
Probably a contractual obligation. They wanted Gaiman's like catalog, but they wanted Sandman, and his like agent probably went, well, if you take Sandman, you've got options on all these other ones, and to keep Sandman, they probably had to make a series of one of the options. That's why Sony have to keep making Spider-Man movies, because if they don't make a Spider-Man movie every 2 years,
the rights revert, don't they?
So maybe it's a contractual thing as well. So thanks, contracts. At Mistress Jar, hashtag Dead Boy Detectives has got to be one. My Dead Boy Detective post on the at Netflix cancels hashtag has 97,000 views, hundreds of likes and shares. People underneath comment and say they couldn't believe it was cancelled, and others going, quote, "This show looks great. Why didn't they promote it?" ?
Going into what Marie said. There you go. Smashing like what she was saying about promotion and marketing and stuff.
Captain Space Shorts at Melly Film said, gonna have to say Dead Boy Detectives, no promotion, algorithm weighed against it, spooky show, premiered in April, yet still managed 3 weeks on Netflix's top 10. 2 weeks on Nielsen, I didn't know that was on Nielsen now. 92% Rotten Tomatoes, 30 plus best off list. Season 2 is written, engaged, and in growing fandom. Egregious. They get bonus points because I literally put that in my post. What favourite shows of yours has been egregiously cancelled? So they get bonus points for mentioning egregious back in it to me. So great job.
I was just going to say, that's another good point. Nearly everything on our list also has like a high Rotten Tomatoes score. It's like they were like loved everywhere. So
this, of course, leads me on to the next most mentioned show, which was Lockwood and Co., which was so bloody good and left us on an incredible cliffhanger of Lockwood about to reveal to Lucy and George what was in the locked room. Well, we're not going to ruin that here for you, but go and check out Jonathan Stroud's books to find out, and you won't be disappointed. And honestly, still to this day, our 2 episodes where we talked about Lockwood and Co. and then the one we talked about getting cancelled are our most listened to episodes of any. It's insane. The fandom for that show is crazy. Jose, what did people have to say about it?
At Fluffy Pinkets, Lockwood and Co. It's always going to be Lockwood and Co. for me. The skull has my heart. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
The skull has my heart! It's...
I was trying to do it sexy. Come on.
I know, but come on with the exclamation points they add on there.
I thought that was great.
All of a sudden, skull has my heart.
It was for a second there. It was a book on tape.
At Spice T23 said, you know, we're never going to forgive or forget Netflix UK for cancelling Lockwood and Co. because Complete Fiction, they had a production company who made the show, did an amazing job. We're so glad they did ClusterCon 2023 and Lock Nation meet with us so we could tell them we're still fighting to save Lockwood and Co. So yeah, Lockwood and Co. fans actually organised an online con called ClusterCon last year. For free, and the fans were able to interact with each other, and also they had guests like the author of the book, Jonathan Stroud. They had the DOP of the show, Oliver Curtis, Bradley Down, a script editor on the show, one of the writers, Joy Wilkinson, and the director, William McGregor, as well as the whole exec producer of the whole shebang from the production company Complete Fiction, Rachel Pryor. Now, what I like about this is sometimes I think in the industry, when a show's cancelled and everything's so fast moving, you think the creatives behind it would just right, it's been cancelled, boom, we're on to the next thing. The fact that they're still obviously loved working in the show that much that they're taking the time, like a year after it's been cancelled, to still go out and do like a fan convention for that. And sadly, the show isn't coming back. It's almost 2 years now, and all the actors are working on other stuff. You just know that's usually the thing when the show's not going to happen. But it's just such a good example of like a positive fandom there. Like, and again, the amount of comments we've had from people about Lockwood and Co. over the years it's crazy now, man.
I'm pretty sure I checked out your podcast because of the Lockwood and Co. episode. I think that was like the first one I heard from you guys.
Yeah. Were you on it, Jose?
Yeah. I don't think I watched the show, but I was part of the crew.
And now you're banished again.
I was part of the group at that point.
You were the reason it got cancelled, Jose.
Next up, Warrior Nun. A European production that was likened to a modern-day version of Buffy in some places. Now, I admit, I watched a few of them and it never really hooked me as much. But it was cancelled after its second series, and then there was a massive fan campaign that got underway. And Paul Tassi of Forbes wrote, Netflix cancels Warrior Nun, and you're going to like this, Ben, its highest audience scored series ever for reasons. And it was apparently the highest single-rated show of a season in Netflix history, according to Rotten Tomatoes at the time.
Wow.
And, of course, it was cancelled.
At Bella Snow 30, always and forever Warrior Nun. It's not just a loss, it's a whole black hole in our hearts.
Oh, I mean, felt that. That cut deep.
I did. I kind of agree, because I loved that show. I thought it was really good. And it drew me in. It was one of those ones where like it was like action enough, it was like kind of like fun and sexy enough to just like turn my brain off and just enjoy the ride. It didn't have to like move me or like, reshape the way I think about things. It was just fun, and it was a really great concept. I like being a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. Like, this kind of spoke to me as well. So like I genuinely do feel I'm with you at Bella Snow 30.
At Monty Dom 32, canceling Warrior Nun was unforgivable, and Santa Clarita Diet canceled on a literal cliffhanger. This makes me want to watch Santa Clarita Diet, but you're sad to hear about Warrior Nun.
I believe
Santa
that
Clarita was number. Wait, am I allowed to say? Am I allowed to say?
Oh,
it was number one. It was number one for me. I was so sad that show got cancelled.
Spoilers.
Fucking, the cliffhanger it ended on. The cliffhanger it ended on.
Take a breath.
Bring it back. Bring it back. Think of Game of Thrones. It'll distract you.
No, don't think you figure Game of Thrones. I'll just set him off again.
You know nothing, Jose. We're talking about Game of Thrones again.
Jesus Christ.
We need to rename Jose to Timmy Triggers right now.
Well, look, in terms of Warrior Nun, for once, it actually looked like the fan pressure had paid off, because the show's creator, Simon Barry, stated in June 2023 that the series had been revived, crediting the fan support in helping make it happen. However, Netflix wasn't involved in its revival. The guy then posted a link to the website, warriornunsave.com, showing a countdown to August 15th, 2023. The exec producer, Dean English, then confirmed in August that the storyline would continue with the series in a trilogy of feature films, and also teased the universe based on the series. However, that was over a year ago, and nothing has happened yet. So any Warrior Nun fans, just let us know what is going on with this revival, because it seems like it's stuck in a development hell, much like our Community film that we're still waiting for.
Hey.
Apparently it's under development.
It's always under development. It's always under development. It's never going to... 6 seasons in a movie. Yes.
6 seasons in a movie.
The other show that got lots and lots of attention, and Marie, you're going to like this one, was Shadow and Bone, which once again had superb metrics. But interestingly, this time Netflix blamed the actors and writers' strike. They didn't blame the actors. They blamed the writers and actors' strikes, and as a reason for cancelling the show. And the fans were even more pissed off because they'd already announced a Six of Crows spin-off show, and that was all written, ready to go, and they cancelled both of them.
I really liked Shadow and Bone. I did not read the books. They kind of came out after I was no longer young adult. Basically, like I think they weren't. Like, they came out after, like, I was a teenager, the Grishaverse books. But I really do like the show because I watched anything fantasy related. And also, like, fun fact for season 1, they shot the majority of it in Hungary. And I actually, like, do know, like, I've been to the majority of the locations in like, multiple times. Especially the Little Palace is in Szeged. And this was like they released season 1 during COVID, and I haven't been back like to Hungary because of COVID for like 3 years at this point. So like seeing Hungary was really cool. I was just like the Leo meme. I was like, oh, I've been there. But it was solid young adult fantasy, and of course, I think what a lot of people would say about the show, the most interesting part of the series was the crows. So I was really excited about the fact that they got their own spin-off. And yeah, the fact that that got canceled was annoying. I have to say, like, when like the crows were the ones that kept me in spot every time it went to the other characters, I was like, meh. But like the crows were amazing, and yeah, I thought the world was cool. I thought there was it did lean very into young adult tropes, but it definitely deserved to like tell its full story.
I have a question. Is the crows a character's last name, or is it literally crows?
No,
Because I'm imagining like crows just lined up on like a
Yeah, I was
telephone.
wondering.
Okay.
it's a gang. It's a gang. So the book is actually
Okay.
called The Six of Crows, and it's a thieving gang that like runs around this fictional verse and like performs heists.
I was imagining just a bunch of birds.
Mhm.
But okay.
I mean,
No.
I was thinking
Like-
people who turn into birds.
Anyway, moving on. So Claudia Dunage says the Six of Crows spin-off cancellation was such a shock. The scripts were already written. The cast loved it. It has the most amazing heist. The biggest mistake Netflix has ever made.
At Kit's White Shirts, Dead Boy Detectives / I am not okay with this / end of the fucking world / first kill.
Which sounds like escalating threats, really, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like they're really annoyed about Dead Boy Detectives being cancelled. They're not okay with this. It's the end of the world, and they're going to
kill someone.
But that is just a list of shows that got cancelled, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Uh,
Good.
There's no
Good.
through narrative.
The next person is Cage Fighting Pod. I'll never not be angry about Last Man on Earth being canned, especially with it ending on a cliffhanger. I actually saw a couple episodes. That was really, really funny show.
Good old Will Forte.
That's a great show.
Great show, man.
The episode where he's driving he finds an abandoned military aircraft, and he's just driving it through the streets. Nearly killed me laughing.
At Metallica Wolf, great name because it's Matt and then Metallica. So Metallica at Metallica Wolf, double T. American
Yeah, we
Gods
get
was
words. Neil,
cancelled.
carry on.
Do you? American Gods was cancelled way too early, as I'm sure Mr. Ricky Whittle will agree. And Utopia UK for me was the biggest TV cancellation of all time. That was a 10 out of 10 show.
Let me just psych myself up for this one. Okay. At RP Canary PI says.
Now, is that Canary Private Detective? Because that's the show I want to watch.
Oh shit, there was more. I
Obviously,
thought it
Matt.
was just the Midnight Club. I didn't realize there was a little bit underneath that. Okay, he said I thought the Midnight Club was pretty decent. I believe it was cancelled on a cliffhanger after one season. David, can you confirm? I think that was for you, Neil. That section at the end.
David,
I
can you
read that.
confirm? It was you? Because I know you watched it.
I
'cause
don't
you're-
know. I was
unlike-
the reason why it got cancelled again because I stopped watching it after about.
It was by your bro. It was by your bro. Your man.
I know. Don't let him know though.
Mike
Don't-
Flanagan. It
I
was
mean, I
a
hope he doesn't
Flanagan
listen
show.
to this because I really want to work for him one day. So maybe cut that out because Mike's going to listen.
Yeah,
So I don't want him to know that about me.
We
I
are
want him to
getting a
think
lot
positively.
of famous listeners.
we are. It's true. Well, I got retweeted by the director of The Substance the other week because I said
Oh.
that last 20 minutes is one of the most insane experiences I've ever had in the cinema, and just the look on people's faces. But this isn't the one about The Substance. But we'll get back to that sometime. Jose, next.
At Saturn Widow, maybe Julie and the Phantoms.
Kristen Pratt at Pratt_Kristen. I really loved #The Brother's Son, something I've never actually watched, and was disappointed they cancelled it. And Michelle Yeoh was fabulous as always. Justin Shen, is that Shen? And Sam Lee were fantastic. I want to see them in more things. Great action scenes, a lot of heart, fun soundtrack. We love a soundtrack here
Love a soundtrack.
on We Needed Roads.
Is this
Good
the
shout
one where
out. Well done.
there's a guy in high school and he starts to learn he has magical kung fu powers?
I don't know. I haven't watched it. I don't
Oh.
think any of us have watched it. So that's on the list.
No, I haven't seen
think
it.
We'll have to watch it. Ellie at Ellie actually gives us she gave us a massive list of shows, and so we have cut some of the ones that we're going to talk about later. But even from that, there was still about 4 or 5 shows here that I hadn't heard of. So Anne with an E, not a clue. Everything Sucks. No. Everyone's looking. No.
Wait,
That sounds
no, I-
familiar.
No,
Pretty
everything
Smart. Then there was also The Irregulars, which steampunk Victorian fantasy show. That's getting cancelled after one season. Bastards. That was really good. I completely
Oh no,
forgot
I
about
haven't
that
seen
as well.
Everything Sucks. I've never
Okay.
even heard of it. I'm mixing it up.
It's a really great Descendants song. That's why.
Oh, of course it is. And Dead to Me as well, which I think was the Linda
Dead to Me.
Cardinelli
That's
one.
on my list.
At next to the aisle, Mindhunter / OG Quantum Leap. I never understand this one getting cancelled, and Quantum Leap the first time. But OG Quantum Leap, yes, it was cancelled, and yes, it was heartbreaking, but it gave us the very best ending to any series ever, in my opinion. Like the way that show ended, the way they drew that together, and how Sam Beckett like has to make a decision that he can go back and fix something that he went. Oh, it was spoilers.
Oh.
Spoilers for a show from the 80s.
I feel like
Oh,
that's
no.
like a whole other podcast as
Are
well.
you gonna
Best ever
go
endings.
back and watch something from the 90s, Jose? Like, are you honestly gonna go back and watch Quantum Leap?
Oh,
I mean,
7
I-
seasons of 22 episodes.
Yeah, and it was cancelled. It was cancelled after 7 seasons. Like Neil just said.
How was it canceled?
It
too
wasn't
soon then?
really-
7 seasons.
Because there was no ending.
I don't-
It didn't end,
Yes, there
Jose.
was. And for me, that end of Quantum Leap was as good as the end of Sopranos, where you just get that kind of like, oh
Ooh.
shit, what's about to go down? Like that was fucking genius in my opinion. And Quantum Leap had the same ending.
Was it a
So
VO? Was it a
fucking-
VO at the end, or was it a bit of text that come up on the screen, like when you used to finish?
It was
an old-
it was text on the screen.
It's text, and
you
I was
had-
like, ah. It's like, when you used to complete an old Spectrum 48K game or something, and you like completed the game. He goes, "Congratulations, you have won," and it was like this, and it said something on screen, and it was really disturbing. You're like, what? But yeah, Quantum Leap. My voice went really high there. At launching the pilot, said Travelers. Anyone heard of a show called Travelers?
yeah.
No.
What is Travelers, Ben?
I've got it in a nutshell. I think it's I think it's time travelers. People go back in time, but they inhabit people's bodies. So they send their consciousness back in time. They inhabit people's bodies from like now, and they have. I've got to be careful with spoilers again, but they inhabit people's bodies and use those people to enact some sort of plan that they have to either save the
Oh.
future or like have something happen in the future. Like it's pretty good. Like it's pretty good. Like
Is
it was
one of
pretty
the
good.
actors from Will and Grace?
Yes, it was one of the guy from Will and Grace. Yeah,
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
he seemed very evil in that show. I saw the first episode.
they all
Spoilers.
come
Jose,
across as
for a
really
show that-
evil.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Jose.
bastards turning it around on me.
You reap what you sow, my friend.
And you're going to get sewed all over.
Oh.
You're gonna get sewed right up.
I choose not to.
Our friends over at the Doom Generation pod said Manhunter when they meant Mindhunter, but then they explained it by saying it is 2:30 a.m. when they responded to that tweet. And also, there is a film from the 70s called Manhunter that I guarantee you just look up because it just looks mental and crazy and really bad, and now I want to see it. So Manhunter from 1974. So before we get to our honourable mentions, I'm going to run through this as quickly as humanly possible, but hopefully slow enough that you can
Don't
actually
forget to
understand
breathe.
it.
Breathing
So
is good.
in this
Yeah.
section, no interruptions. You can jump in at the end because there is a lot of shows here that we're not going to talk about in any more depth than me literally reading out the name of them just to go, oh yeah, that was a show. Hands. Freaks and Geeks, Seth Rogen, Linda Cardinelli, and many more, a teen comedy drama from Paul Feig, 1 season. The Get Down from Baz Luhrmann, starring Justice Smith, about the birth of hip hop, half a season because Netflix never did the second half of the show. Arseholes. Pushing Daisies, Brian Fuller's whimsical comedy drama with Anna Friel and Lee Pace. Brilliant show. My Lady Jane, I mean, it was just cancelled and we've talked about it a lot. Hashtag Save My Lady Jane. Brimstone, Smallville's John Glover as the devil from 1998, about a cop who gets killed on duty, makes a deal with the devil to recover escaped souls from hell. Cancelled. Constantine, Matt Ryan took on the TV mantle of Constantine for 1 season in a pretty great show, but it was Fox, and then it got cancelled, and then he got folded into DC's Legends of Tomorrow, which was fine. My So-Called Life, the original teen drama that launched Claire Danes and Jared Leto, 1 season. Battlestar Galactica, the original Battlestar Galactica, it had an $8 million pilot in 1978 and had 24 episodes, and then it was cancelled. But I think probably the first big fan campaign to bring a show back was Star Trek. This was probably one of the next big ones. And it was saved and it was brought back. Although it probably shouldn't have been because it turned into Galactica 80 where they were on Earth and it was basically just chips. It was fucking terrible and it deserved to be cancelled. Dirk Benedict's face was like, fuck that, I'm not coming back. And I don't think Richard Hatch even came back for much of it either. Cowboy Bebop, starring John Cho, Netflix version of the classic anime, was largely hated by fandom. However, if you hadn't seen the anime, like me, I really liked it, and it definitely got Firefly vibes going on. And Ben's waving, and he liked it as well. It looked amazing, so of course it was cancelled. Stargate Universe. Imagine Star Trek Voyager, but it's Stargate, where a group of people on the ship need to get home. It starred Robert Carlyle as a shifty scientist, and it was really decent. So of course it got cancelled after one season, when every other Stargate show got about 7 seasons and 22 episodes. Willow, available for about 6 months and then thrown to oblivion and not available anywhere, despite the end of it promising us 2 more seasons. Now, I was really annoyed with this because Willow was getting better and better by the episode. Had a great cast and it was funny. It's so rare to get funny fantasy, and it really had amazing Buffy vibes when you got to that last scene of the final episode. Angel, I mean, we got 5 seasons, and after what we know now, which was speculated and confirmed about Joss Whedon, it's probably best it did end. But also, it went out in a blaze of glory. But there is an official season 6 comic called After the Fall, which is great. We're definitely worth picking up and reading if you want to see where the story goes afterwards. Speaking of problematic people, still Whedon, The Nevers, his last show about Victorian superpowered ladies got shut down during COVID, and he also got shut down during COVID as well and stepped away. But the show was really fun, had a great cast, and then it had such an outrageous mid-season twist that I had to check I was watching the same show, and then I still wasn't sure until other characters finally came back into it. I was like, what have I just watched? It was one of the craziest twists I've seen, because you're watching a Victorian fantasy show, and then suddenly it's a completely different show. And finally, Vinyl, a collab between Martin Scorsese, HBO, and Terrence Winter from The Sopranos about the cutthroat music industry in 1970s New York, starring Bobby Cannavale, Olivia Wilde, and Juno Temple. It was really good, despite Mick Jagger's son being in it and not being very good, and that, of course, got 1 season. And breathe.
As an American who grew up with my so-called life, I am shocked that was just 1 season. It felt like so much longer. Of course, it was probably when there was 24 episodes per season. But I was just like, that was such a big deal back then. Like, Claire Danes really blew up because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
She exploded.
When you...
Right, we are almost ready to start the list. But first, we have our honourable mentions. Marie, what shows would you like to mention that are not in our top 10?
The first one's on my honorable mentions is Dead Like Me, which I think is the oldest show that I have on this list. And it's the one that I saw like ages ago when I was a teenager. But it was really good. And the concept was that when you die, you come back as a Grim Reaper and you have to like help people to their deaths. And you followed like this teenage girl who was a teenage girl and didn't want to be there. And the concept was amazing. And it definitely deserved more seasons.
I remember she, George, her name was, and she got killed by a toilet from a spacecraft.
I saw that, yeah. I saw a couple
amazing
episodes.
show.
I still recommend it, even though it doesn't like have like a proper conclusion. It did get a movie.
Yeah, I think they finished it off in a movie, but again, I think a lot of the cast have moved on. So
yeah, so
Dead Like Me Afterlife, I believe, is the movie. Yeah,
yeah, and I believe I did see it, but I don't remember it as well as I do the show. And then, like, second one on my list is A League of Their Own, which was a remake of the movie. And it was Amazon Prime. It, I think, came out 2 years ago. Once again, it was a queer show that got canceled after 1 season. And I'm not into sports. So if a sports show, like, catches my attention, it's saying something. But yes, it was the story about when, like, all the men went off to war and the women had to pick up the work. And one of them was starting a baseball team because they still wanted to keep morale up. And yeah, I thought it was a great show. The costuming was adorable. The characters were really good. And it also ended on a kind of a cliffhanger. So I thought it definitely deserved a second season. And I think it was in general just planned like a 2 seasons. They weren't like planning on making this like a very long show. So that's another reason why the cancellation was so disappointing. And now the next one is like, I generally think like I do recommend even checking this out, even though it just has 1 season. It's a Netflix show, of course, and that is Teenage Bounty Hunters. This is a phenomenal show because it's so funny. It is fucking hilarious. It's about like these teenage twins who decide to become bounty hunters and hunt down like criminals. And even that, if that concept doesn't make you like go, okay, that sounds a bit strange. It is. It's meant to be strange. It's funny. It's just, it was edited so, like, it had a very unique style to it. So the editing was very unique. And it also ended on a fucking cliffhanger. And yeah, I really want to know what happens next. And that is like I think it was also one of Netflix's best performing shows of that year. And the fact that it got canceled, it was very disappointing. Once again, queer, and it got canceled. I'm going to be repeating that a lot. And then another one was Paper Girls, which I think came out 2 years ago. I really liked the show. I thought it was interesting. I liked the concept, except and again was shocked when it got canceled. Then I read the comic and kind of understood that they kind of went into their very own direction. But in my defense, I think in their defense, adapting the comic loyally, I'm not sure. It's a very weird comic. It's a very weird comic. It has like pterodactyls and it's like yeah, but it has dinosaurs. Oh, the comic is also really fun. But the show I think was also quite fun, and I think the young actors did such a good job because it's a time travel show, so there were two versions. There was an old version and a young version of the characters. And yeah, it definitely deserved a second season, even if it wasn't loyal to the comics. And finally, even though I know they're technically coming back, but when this first happened, I was very upset, and that was canceling all the MCU Netflix shows. Except for Iron Fist, that can go fuck itself. But all the
With its
other ones,
with its Iron
it's
Fist,
shit,
Sally.
man. Iron Fist is pure garbage. It's so bad.
Come on! Everyone dumps on that show, and I fucking loved it. I get it was an epic version of Hollywood whitewashing. I understand it was like cast wrong, but it was really fun. Like it was. Oh god, fine.
My favourite out of all those MCU shows was The Punisher. I just thought John Bernthal was so superb as it, and hopefully, and we know he's coming back for Daredevil Born Again. So.
Jessica Jones, and I mean, they're rumors. I'm really hoping she's coming back, but like, I was really disappointed that Jessica Jones
first season
got
of
canceled.
Jessica Jones. They did a really great job with the first season of her. That got me hooked.
First season was David Tennant was the bad guy.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
he was so good.
But the second season wasn't as good. Like
I
it
have
just
to
wasn't.
admit, the second season wasn't so good. But
That's where I dropped off.
It wasn't.
The second season.
Because I loved Defenders. I thought that was fucking excellent. I thought they brought the characters together really well. It was really good fun. Like it was like I mean, it's a TV show. You're not going to get a Avengers level like stuff out of it, but you know, like they made some bold moves in it. I was like, all right, cool. You're gonna maybe kill off a character, and Sigourney Weaver was in it. It was fucking brilliant. Everyone dumps on it because it comes out like the competition for it was so hard. Like I was like, you guys, fine, whatever. I'll just be a little comic book nerd enjoying comic book movies and shows.
And the final they were fighting inside of a dragon. That was not. I don't think. I mean, it's comic book, but still, and also you couldn't see anything. It was very dark.
They weren't fighting inside of a dragon.
What was it?
They were fighting for the dragon's blood. And they were fighting in the basement of this building that ends up falling down. Maybe, possibly on top of one of the characters, so I don't get fucking shot by the spoiler police.
I don't know. It was dark. I didn't realize. I didn't know what was going on.
Speaking of not knowing what's going on, David.
Oh, hello.
Your free shows, mate.
My first.
Was that we're just meant to say 3? Sorry, I went down the list.
Well, your list is
You
there.
supplied more than 3, Marie. You got to talk more than 3.
You did good, Marie. My first one isn't like a proper TV show, I suppose. Did anyone watch The Crystal Maze? Jose, did they have The Crystal Maze when you was a wee nip?
I don't
back in
remember that.
1990.
Bearing in mind it's a British game show, Jose. David.
Yeah, I
we
know.
didn't
That's
get
why I'm
this.
asking Jose if our American listeners had the Crystal Maze. So basically, Jose, you get a group of people, like families, if you will, or friends, and everybody just goes into their own little rooms and they have to do puzzles and they get little crystals at the end of it. And these puzzles could be like physical puzzles, they could be like maths puzzles, they could be anything. And at the end of it, they go into a big crystal and they got to catch all of the leaflets. They got to catch all the leaflets, Jose. And then
I love
You've done a horrible
David,
job
David,
describing
deposit the leaflets into this like little leaflet
Trapdoor.
Yeah, that's the word. And then at the end of it, they get money. That's
All right. Can I
basically the
just
TV
give
show.
Can I give a quick overview so it doesn't sound like a fever dream that David had? So teams of people go around 4 areas, right? One person at a time has to go into a room and solve a puzzle with the help of the people on the outside guiding them. So it could be a physical puzzle where you've got to do something physical. It could be a mental puzzle where you've got to use like your brain to like figure stuff out. And there's all these different categories. You've got a certain amount of time in the room, and once that time runs out, you either get out, like you freed the crystal from the puzzle, and you get out with the crystal, or you get out. You don't solve the puzzle, and you get out of the room, or you run out of time in the room and you get locked into the room. So you go around and you do all these games, and then each crystal gives you 10 seconds of time in the giant crystal at the end, right? And the idea is to get as many crystals as you can so that you've got as much time as possible in the giant like ball, which is full up with gold and silver like tokens that giant fans blow around, and you've got to catch them out of the air. Every time you put a gold one through the trapdoor, you get 10 points. And every time you put a silver one through the door, you lose 10 points. So at the end, even the last game, and if you want to, the more people you've got in that ball at the end, the more leaflets you're going to collect. So if you've got people locked in the rooms, you've got to use your crystals to buy them out. The whole thing was mental.
Yeah, you guys got that from what I said, right? That's the.
I mean, like both descriptions was equal fever dream level. Like it wasn't
Ben,
excellent.
Did you write the Wikipedia for the Crystal Maze?
I don't know. I might as well have.
The one thing that no one mentioned though, Richard O'Brien was a host in the original OG show.
Yeah, and it was rebooted, and Richard Ayoade. I can never say his last name properly. Ayoade.
Eduardo.
Eduardo. See, there's 3 different pronunciations.
Eduardo.
Yeah.
But also there was
the IT dude.
There was also another version where Ed Tudor Pole took over after Richard O'Brien.
That's not a real name, Ben.
It is. He was the singer for the Sex Pistols after Johnny Rotten left. He did the second Sex Pistols album.
This is a great honorable mention, by the way. This is great.
I did a gig with him once. I did a show with him once. He was a lovely man. He was. Everybody was told not to talk about the Crystal Maze in front of him, and you know, like TV stars, and they tell you not to talk about stuff or look him in the eyes. He was trying to get into the backstage door when I was stood next to him, and he was punching the code in, and he got it wrong. And I went, "Oh, you'd be shit on the Crystal Maze, mate." And he just looked at me and burst into laughter. And then the whole rest of the day, he just started telling us stories about the Crystal Maze. He was smoking a cigarette backstage and flicking the ash into his cowboy boot that he was still wearing. Like,
oh my God.
He was cool as fuck. Really lovely guy.
The best thing about the Crystal Maze as well, guys, and I think I want to pitch this to everybody, is we can do it as an experience. Team bonding, all of us. In London, or where I think it's in London. Crystal Maze experience, guys. Who's
Might
up
be
for
a little
it?
tough for me to get there.
I'm in.
Same.
Neil.
That's right. We'll start a crowd. I'm in, but we'll start a crowdfunder to get our international hosts into the UK.
Yeah, Neil, get on it, because you know.
Well, I feel like with Marish, with travel and things, it's easier for her.
I mean, she's in Europe.
Yeah, still,
It's just across a pond. Come on.
You got trains, right? Trains.
No. Not
really.
from Lisbon.
Not from Portugal.
You just take the long way.
Oh my God. David, your next show.
Well, anyway, Neil, you little cocksucker.
I beg your pardon.
My next show is Deadwood, which I'm not gonna lie.
Explains your intro to me there, doesn't it?
I didn't spat tea all over my laptop.
I was proper scraping the barrel with my like the first
segues.
Show. Yeah. No, not my segue. I thought I was good.
Were we meant to do segues?
The shows. that I'd actually watched that had been cancelled, because apparently there weren't that many of them, and Deadwood was one of them that I was probably the reason why it got cancelled, because I only watched about two seasons of the show, and I
Why
never
is it
watched the
on your
movie.
list?
Because I was scraping the barrel, Marie. I was just saying, I was so many shows that I had that I was like, I like that show. Why did I stop watching it? And I wasn't watching it at the time. I watched it after the time. Then other things come along, Marie. I don't know, Marie. What happens in life? But anyway, fun fact for you: the word "fuck" in Deadwood is said 2,980 times. And the word
In one
cocksucker,
episode.
Neil, you little cocksucker, is
What?
280 times.
Jesus.
So
At this point, David's going to say that many times in his podcast.
Do we have a parental advisory warning at the beginning of the show?
I have to click the
That's all right,
explicit
Dave.
thing when I upload
It's
it.
fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. David's a parent. We're all covered.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how that works.
you wouldn't think it that I'm the one that's a dad here, but
Yeah.
there you go.
And David, the last thing before we
I can't
Escape.
even remember what it was, mate. What was it?
Rome.
Oh yeah, Rome. Rome was a great fucking show. Rome. Not only like if you look at like IMDb or like Rotten Tomatoes, like we were saying earlier, really high scores. I don't know why this got cancelled.
Because it cost a
I
shit ton of
probably
money.
should have done my research into why it got cancelled, actually. But Rome was basically like Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was a thing. It was like I think it was about Julius Caesar's civil war, and like Rome becoming a dictatorship, and it would follow two Roman soldiers, and it was all about like power within the families. It was a fucking amazing show, Rome. Like, have you guys seen Rome?
No,
Yeah.
I think I was on the high seas when it came out.
I mean, if I didn't just sell it, I don't know what will. That was I feel like that was
Anything else?
I feel like that was perfect salesmanship there from me.
I keep trying to say there was an unnerving amount of rape in that show though. Like
Yeah.
it was I was like
It weren't
to the
great,
point where it like disturbed me and I had to stop watching for a minute because I was just like, all right, fuck.
Yeah,
There
that's
were
why I
some-
didn't watch
yeah.
it.
Nasty
We actually
little,
have season 1 on
soldiers.
DVD back when that was still a thing. But
DVD's still a thing. I just bought
Actually-
this. Well,
Oh,
It's
no,
invisible.
on the screen.
Because you
it's an
What?
invisible magic
Yes.
thing.
There we go.
The Hitcher.
Oh,
Rucker Hauer.
it's funny.
Yeah.
I actually got made fun of because I went to a friend's house and I brought a couple DVDs to watch just in case. And they're like,
What is
"What are
going
you
on with
like,
Neil right now?"
80?" I was like, "Well, these are good movies. Why not? You know,
Physical
Yeah.
media, man. Fuck you, streamers. Even though
right?" Yeah, fuck them because they're the ones that cancel these shows.
Exactly, and then make
I
stuff
think I-
unavailable to get. Ben, your free show.
Hello. Thank you. I was just writing notes. My 3 shows. I'm going to start off with. This is a weird order because I put them in a weird order, and Neil just copied them straight onto the notes. But I'll start off with Veronica Mars. I don't include the reboot. I thought like that was a different thing. Like it just fucking stopped. Like 4 seasons in as well. Like when you get 4 seasons in on something, was it 4 seasons? 4 seasons total.
I think it was
And
3.
there was a reboot. It was 3 seasons, and then there was a rebooted season, and then the movie. I quite enjoyed the movie. But yeah, so the 3 seasons. Thank you, Marie. It just stops. Like you don't really get anything. Nothing gets resolved. But it was really well acted. It had some great people in it. It was dark where it needed to be dark. It was light where it needed to be light. It dealt with some really heavy teen issues that, like, I don't think anything else was kind of brave enough to go that far into at the time. Like, you had shows, you had like the throwaway shows, like One Tree Hill and the OC and stuff, which just like dealt with the melodrama. And then you had like the Buffys and stuff that dealt with like the darker side of like teen life. And I'm sure there are many, many others that I never watched. But for me, Veronica Mars was like gritty. It dealt with a lot of like really, really important things that teens were going through, and it casts a lot of light onto that. And so it throws a lifeline out that then just gets sort of snapped away. The movie then comes along to sort of tie it all up, and the whole world has moved on, and it's not really a teen thing anymore. It's just like wrapping up these characters as like a band-aid on what you were kind of like trying to sort of resolve in your own mind. So Veronica Mars is the first one on my list. Did anybody else watch it?
Yeah, I'm a huge Veronica Mars fan. I actually rewatched it last year because I watched it when I was a teenager, and then last year I was like in the mood for it. I don't like season 3, I have to admit. I do like but 1 and 2 I think are just peak television. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I did remember enjoying it because I watched it all in one when I was checking out this show for the first time. And then the reboot, I actually quite enjoyed the reboot, except for the last, like, what was it, 10 minutes where they made a phenomenally stupid decision. And I generally do not understand why they made this decision. And based on like the other fans, I'm not in the minority here. So yeah, but I do agree, like the original series, especially season 1 and 2, and more season 1, because season 1 is, I think, peak television. It is really, really good. Like it has a really good mystery, but not just a really good mystery, a really good way the mystery gets solved, because that's also really important. And the characters are hilarious. So yeah, I always advise anyone to check out Veronica Mars. Like it's a good show.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. So then my second one is a show called Reaper, which was a comedy show. And like it was actually Neil, it was you that turned me onto it. Like back in the day, you're like, you got to watch Reaper, and I was like, shut up, don't tell me what to do. And then I watched it anyway.
That doesn't sound like Neil.
And
Shut up, David.
You know what? It sounds a hell of a lot like me, though.
I think we can spoil Reaper, man. It's never coming back, is it? Let's be honest.
I mean,
shut up, Jose.
I don't think.
I'm going to reap Jose in a minute.
Oh,
I'm going to. Okay, I'm not going to jump in on that because I'm going
to virtually smash him in the head with this.
I've just realised, Jose, has your shirt got your hometown on it, just in case you forget where you live? What is it? It's the Bucket. Okay, it's the Buccaneers. Okay.
Yeah.
That was almost a really good burn, David. Almost. Ben, tell us about Reaper.
I'm actually just going to read the overview from Google because it is pretty good. So when he was going through his teen years, Sam often wondered why his parents never seemed to mind his slacking off, although they always pressured his kid brother Keith to excel. When he turns 21, however, Sam makes an ungodly discovery. His parents sold his soul to the devil before he was born. When Satan pops in to explain that Sam is going to have to serve as his bounty hunter, tracking down escaped evil souls and returning them to hell, Sam's first reaction is to tell Satan to go to, well, home. But it quickly dawns on him that breaking a deal with the devil is likely to have more serious consequences than getting grounded. Before you can say, is it just me or is it hot in here? Sam embarks on a dangerous and often terrifying new gig as the Reaper, assisted by his fellow slackers Ben and Sock, as well as Andy, Sam's girlfriend. Brett Harrison played Sam Oliver. Now, like he pops up in stuff from time to time, and I'm like, that's the kid from Reaper. Couldn't tell you what else he's been in though. But it had Ray Wise as the devil, who was he was so funny, so tongue in cheek. So he was almost like a wise guy version of the devil. Tyler Labine was in it. He is, if you've watched, he's in a show called New Amsterdam. He plays the psychologist, the head of psychology in New Amsterdam. He's phenomenal in that. He was also in Tucker and Dale
versus Evil.
Yeah, with Alan Tudyk. I just think he's fantastic in everything he does. Interestingly enough, Kevin Smith was in it. And yeah, it doesn't tell you on here what he played, but he was in it. And I remember seeing him and I'm thinking, oh, all right, that's cool. And that made me kind of invested me in the show a little bit more. So it was a really good show. And it ends again on a cliffhanger. It's, like Sam's trying to break the deal, stop being the Reaper, and he comes close and then he can't, he has to keep, stay in the reaping game because one of his friends is going to get killed or blah, blah, whatever happens. But it was just really, really fun. It was just a solid show for me. And yeah, 2 seasons. That was it. That's all we got. Anybody else watch it?
I watched the first series, but it was 2007. So I literally watched it and then I was off for years and not in the country when it was on. And then it was gone by the time I came back. I never realized there was 2 seasons of it. So if it's ever going to be on like a streaming thing somewhere, I will definitely watch the second. I'll watch it all again probably because it was that like I say, I don't know. Was Kevin Smith involved in like directing some of the pilot as well? Maybe I think because he was at his peak
It's
around
probably.
then,
I
wasn't
don't know about the pilot, but he was definitely involved. Like,
he? Involved in it,
and he was
and
in
it had
so
that it had that kind of slacker clerks vibe to it as well, wasn't it? Had that real kind of
very much so.
slacker. Yeah, I remember it being totally my bag when it came out. That's probably why I recommended it to you, Ben.
They work. I think they work in like a Home Depot, like B&Q kind of place as well. So like you got that innovative ways of slacking off, which is it was great. But yeah, that was a favorite of mine for a while. But this last one that I'm going to talk about was one of my out of these three was my favorite out of all these three, mainly because I have an enormous crush or had an enormous crush on Eliza Dushku, and the show was called True Calling.
Who didn't?
Right? Exactly.
The Girl Next Door, underrated movie.
No, wrong person, Jose.
Wrong
person.
one.
Wrong, Jose.
Oh wait, Dushku.
That's Eliza Cuthbert.
That's
You're right.
Cuthbert
You're thinking,
from 24.
yeah.
What's the cheerleader
Yeah,
movie?
so
with,
I think
what's her name?
Bring
No,
it
stop talking
on.
about cheerleaders. Stop talking about cheerleaders.
Bring it on.
Bring it
Totally
on as
rated movie.
Elijah Dushku. But she played Faith in Buffy the
Faith.
Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all right, so True Calling. So she works in a morgue, and Zach Galifianakis was the head morgue guy.
Mortician.
So what? Sure, if that's what you want to call him. When True Davis, that was it. He has got the same surname as me, so I was like, yeah. When True Davis starts working in a city morgue, she learns that she can go back in time for one day to help change the fates of both strangers and those close to her. True, assisted by Harrison, her irresponsible younger brother, and Davis, her loyal friend, that's Galifianakis, and confidant. So what would happen is that the body would come into the morgue. She would go, oh no, this guy was shot to death, and that's terrible. And then the body would reach out to her, grab her, and say, "Help me!" And then she'd zip back in time to the start of the day, and she'd be like, "Right, and now I've got to find that human person and help them to not get shot or find out who did it, or however it sort of pans out."
So it's like it's like the creepy version of Early Edition, basically.
Oh,
Where
wow.
Carl Chandler would get the newspaper and he'd be able to do it the day before.
Yeah. So obviously, like the first time it happens, it's like, oh no, this is terrible. What's happening to me? But by the time like she gets into the swing of things, she's like pays attention to everything that is on the body. She does the autopsy as quick as possible, and then when she gets sent back in time, she can like help that person not die. Jason Priestley is in it, and he plays the opposite of her character. And he has to he's the one trying to kill these people or make sure that their fate actually happens to them. So it gets a little bit crazy in there. But yeah,
I was going to ask, mate, because I think I watched a few of them, and I was like, because obviously Eliza Dushku, but then it was a procedural, and I was like, so every week, and I kind of got a bit bored by it, and I never got through to the second.
Mm-hmm.
Was there like an overreaching arc that kind of came in, or was it still just Murder of the Week?
Yeah, so it was Murder of the Week, and then second season when Jason Priestley came into it, you find out that he's working against her, and then that gives you the story arc for the season.
Okay.
So he would pop in like every couple of episodes and like be like, "Ha, I'm working against you." Yeah, he would like throw spanners in the works. But Zach Galifianakis in it, brilliant. Just
was it a comedic role then? Zach Galifianakis, was it?
It was like he had a crush on True. And he would like help her, and I think she tells him about her powers, and he's like the only one that sort of believes her. I think that the True's character was like a failed doctor or something, which is why she's in the morgue. I could be getting
she can't kill people.
Because she can't kill people. Another good show, but I really enjoyed it, and it was right at the height of the Eliza Dushku just coming off of Buffy and doing just being great.
Now, Jose, I believe one of your first show you're going to talk about has the other person in it who you just badly got confused with.
Actually, there's two shows with two actresses that we've mentioned already.
Jose, who is one of the lead actresses in Happy Endings, the first show you're going to talk about?
Elisha Cuthbert. But
Yes.
another show that I was going to mention, which
but that's next. So wait. So start with your first one.
I didn't want to start with Happy Endings though. I want to start with Girl Boss.
You always want to start with Happy Endings.
No, you end with Happy Endings.
He's got it there.
Just do it your order. Just do it your way,
Uh,
Jose.
All right. Let's cut. Yes, happy endings with Elisha Cuthbert. Funny enough, she was along with who is now actually a pretty big star, Eliza Coupe and Damon Wayans Jr. At the time, he was pretty new. He was actually going between New Girl and then ended up getting this show and left New Girl. But there's other characters. That show I think was like a Friends, but with everyone being as dumb as Joey. It was literally just like everyone had a quirky scenario. Very few moments of actually smart ideas, but it just was just the right kind of funny. And so, I mean, that's all I could say. It had 3 seasons, but it just kind of kept barely getting each season. And I think it could have just gone a couple more seasons, and it was hilarious. So Zachary Knighton, Casey Wilson, who I think is one of
SNL.
the. I don't know. No, I don't think so.
She was on SNL. Yeah, one
Was
season.
she?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But like her character, I think was probably one of my favorites because she just had funny sayings that I think were the precursor to what teenagers do now with their shortening of words and making no sense. And it was kind of like
Yeah,
You're getting teenagers confused with Australians.
It's-
Arvo,
and then
son is.
yeah, and then this Adam Pally or Polly,
Pally.
he's become
Pally
kind of like
Pally.
a nice mid star. But what his character was, he was gay, but like he was stereotypically opposite of good looking gay. He was poor and unkempt and had again other zany ideas. He ended up being a chef on a food truck, which I thought added
Spoilers,
some-
Jose.
I know. But yeah, this show, like when you look at individual moments, it just you're like, well, I don't get it. But then when you watch the entire season and the cast coming together, they just had really great rapport, and it's just really fun, dumb humor. So
Yeah, I
it was
remember
just-
watching this, man. I enjoyed this. It's a
Yeah.
decent show.
And then Elisha Cuthbert again, I have to mention twice.
And yet again, Jose, you have something with people called Elijah here, don't you?
Yes, this one is the one I'm surprised didn't make the cut. It was called Dollhouse. It had 2 seasons on Fox, and it was
That's
smart. It was too much for executives to understand. I don't know if you recognize names: Amy Acker, Fran Kans. They were really great.
Dude, it's everyone from Buffy and Angel. Mostly
yeah,
Angel.
basically, yeah.
'Cause this was a Joss Whedon show.
Joss Whedon.
yeah, which is probably why I didn't make the cut.
There you go.
It was basically beautiful people who are secret agents, but then their memories are wiped, so they're like fresh robots. And there was a lot of action and conspiracies, and the whole premise was it wasn't just missions, but the overall arc was that there was more to this agency than was first, kind of given. You think, oh, it's just an agency and this is how they do things, but then you realize they're very shady, obviously. And then in the second season, I think was one of my favorite parts was Alan Tudyk got involved.
Yes. He was
And-
awesome in it.
I don't remember everything, but just the fact that he had like as a villain, he had a villain role, and that was really cool. You don't really see Alan Tudyk as an evil guy. Well, a couple times more recently, but he's just a great character actor, and he just brought a lot to it.
I mean, he's good as a chicken.
Yes, he got
Yeah,
paid.
Moana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
didn't know
I
that.
think there was just so much potential that they knew they had, but then executives decided to cut it, or just other reasons, honestly.
Fucking
but
Fox, man. Fucking Fox.
Right? And then the last one, I
It was
think
really
just-
cerebral though. It was really before, like it was really, really
Oh, yeah.
clever. And part of the problem was it was probably a little bit too clever, I think.
Yeah, it's funny how executives don't think audiences
Yeah,
are smart
you're
enough
right.
to keep going.
Yeah.
The first part was
Just leave it at that. Yeah.
They just don't think.
but that is a good point because like so many like smart shows come out and then they like either they cancel it or they dumb it down in like season 2 or 3. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the majority of the world people are stupid, but we're smart.
Clearly.
Especially if you listen to this podcast.
yes. We're making a great impression here.
And Jose, your last show you're going to talk about, I have a fun fact that will blow your mind about this show afterwards when you tell me about it.
Okay. So the last one, I think, is the most niche and probably most surprising for me personally. That I would assume no one would have guessed I like this show. It's called Girl Boss from 2017. One of my few newer shows from Netflix. It starred Britt Robinson and RuPaul. It's loosely based on the story from an online fashion mogul. She basically would sell vintage clothing for a profit, and honestly, the show was just bottom line. It was carried by Robertson. She was such a great actress, and she had such awesome charisma. If you don't know where she's from, I think the most famous thing she's done is Tomorrowland with the. Okay, I might be wrong about that, but I feel like I recognize her the most from Tomorrowland with George Clooney.
She was in
She's done
Tomorrowland.
she was the lead in Tomorrowland, and I don't know. It's just the show really used her personality to make this show great. That's basically all I can think of.
So my fun fact, Jose, bizarre small world that we live in. Britt Robertson got married to a friend of my yoga teacher.
Are you serious?
Because my yoga teacher was like, "Oh yeah, we're going over." Because I was like, "Why haven't we got a class like on the beach next week?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to the States for a friend's wedding." Yeah, he's marrying some actress from like wherever.
Wow.
And oh, what's her name? Oh, Britt Robertson. Oh yeah, looked her up because I hadn't seen the show, so I've not heard of her.
Wow.
And then yeah, so there you go.
That's fun.
Ben's reaction brings me perfectly onto the first of my free shows that I want to talk about briefly, then make the thing. And that show, Brent, is Brain Dead. Now, I have to mention this. It's a political satire sci-fi show from 2016 called Brain Dead. It stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Everything should star Mary Elizabeth Winstead. So imagine if you can cross The West Wing and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And many of the jokes relied on the fact that in Washington, most people don't realize that the other people are being controlled by space bugs. That's kind of the joke. And they do hammer it into the ground a little bit. Tonally, the show was all over the place, which is definitely why it got cancelled. But Winstead was great as Lowell. She just wants to make documentaries about indigenous cultures. Instead, she has to end up working for a sleazy senator brother, Luke. And you've got the great Tony Shalhoub in it, playing a Southern Republican senator who's almost as bad before the space bugs take his brain. But the single greatest thing about this show is the previously on Brain Dead recap songs by this singer-songwriter guy called Jonathan Coulson. The songs are better than anything in the show, and they're more entertaining than the shows himself. In the 12 songs he did, he not only recaps the show, but each recap they get wilder and crazier. One, he decides to recap an episode of Gunsmoke instead, because why not? And so they flash up previously on Gunsmoke, and then he narrates what happens in that show. Another episode, he just doesn't want to do it anymore, and just like he's drunkenly laying there. Another episode, he breaks the fourth wall, and the characters in the show tell him to shut up because he's outside busking on their porch. It's great. And there is a supercut of this on YouTube. So in about 24 minutes, you can watch all these songs back to back, which will basically tell you the whole plot of the show. And you go, this show looks really good. And then you watch it and it's not as good. But these songs were awesome. Brain Dead, brilliant show, but not really. But the songs are great. American Gothic. We're going to go back to 1995 for a show that was so far ahead of its time. It was created by a guy called Sean Cassidy and produced by Sam Raimi, his first time doing TV. And it had nothing to do with painting, but it was a forerunner to shows like American Horror Story, and that the show was darkly violent and went really hard for 1995. Gary Cole, who you remember from Office Space and generally everything, being like, the happy kind of Brady Bunch, that kind of guy. In this, he plays Sheriff Lucas Black, who is basically the devil. He rapes a local woman, Judith Temple, in front of her daughter, and then she eventually gives birth to a son called Caleb Temple. In the pilot episode, Lucas kills his sister in front of him and then convinces his dad that he did it and to commit suicide. And then he wants to raise Caleb in his own demonic image. That is a lot of rape and murder for the first episode of a show. So it was a network show back in the mid-90s. But I think Sam Raimi's kind of cash, as it were, is what got it on the air. And it was fucking scary, man. Like, it was... the kid in it actually grew up to be, Lucas Black, who from the Fast and the Furious films. So that Southern guy, this was him as a kid, and he's really good as a kid in it. Gary Cole is superb as just this magnetic, murdering, demonic piece of shit in it. He's so nasty in the film. Sarah Paulson, who was in all the American Horror Story stuff, this was one of her really early roles. She plays a ghost in it. And the basic kind of story of the whole first series is Caleb's cousin comes to town to uncover the truth about her parents' death. You can guess who killed him. And the whole show kind of becomes this tug of war for the soul of the young kid. And is he going to be a devil man like his father? Or is he going to be good like his ghost sister? It's just, it sounds weird when I say it like that, but it's such a dark, dark show. Some of the jump scares in it for a TV show, David, honestly, they're up there with The Haunting of Hill House. And it had some brilliant guest stars. Bruce Campbell obviously turns up in one episode because it's a Sam Raimi joint, so he has to. And just the opening titles with that, there's somebody at the door, fucking scary. And it made me laugh because actually there's a bit where they're going, there's somebody at the door in Agatha all along. And I was like, this was definitely scarier in American Gothic about 30 years ago. Final show I want to mention is one we briefly mentioned, which is Mindhunter. So, yeah, created by Joe Pennell and showrun and directed by David Fincher. Mindhunter is a strange one for this list because it's actually more down to Fincher's availability and delays between seasons that ultimately sank Mindhunter rather than it being outright cancelled. The show starred Jonathan Groff as Holden Ford, Holt McAnally as Bill Tench, both agents in a nascent FBI behavioural science unit, which led to the profiling of serial killers as their department and work gathers steam. Anna Torf from Fringe, awesome, joins as Wendy Carr and she's added to the unit. I mean, come on, serial killers and Fincher, right? This is just obviously going to work. And it's a great slow-burning arc, and it kind of has this serial killer of the week format where Holden and Bill begin to question famous incarcerated killers, and then they begin to put together profiles to catch current killers. Season 1 standout was Cameron Britton's chilling portrayal of Edward Kemper, who was the first to assist them with their work. And what I like is as the season goes on, we learn more about Holden and Bill's personal lives. There's that kind of little hint in season 2 that Bill's kid might be a bit strange himself and have some serial killer tendencies. He starts worrying that he's seeing that in his son. And in season 2, we have actor Damien Herriman, who Marie plays the baddie in The Artful Dodger. That guy, this is him. He plays Charles Manson. And fun fact, Jose, he plays Charles Manson twice in 2 years. He played Charles Manson in this, and he also played him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for Tarantino as well.
Oh,
hey,
wow.
If you're not going to be like a main role, and you're just going to be in it briefly, why not get Charles Manson? Get the same actor to play Charles Manson. Season 3 was planned in 2019, but it was put on hold until Fincher finished his work on the film Mank. Originally, Fincher had planned out 5 seasons, but in January 2020, Netflix said the cast had been released from their contracts because basically Fincher was too busy with other projects, and the show was put on a definite hold. Last we heard in February 2023, Fincher said the series was officially done, sadly. So, a rare occasion, it's actually David Fincher's fault and not Netflix's. So, Netflix not to blame for a change.
The lead guy in that, the other lead guy, David Gruff, is it?
Jonathan Groff.
Jonathan Groff. He was he played the king in Hamilton.
Yeah.
If you've seen him. Yeah.
Who hasn't seen Hamilton?
I'll be back. Yeah. We can't do it because we haven't got the license for it. We'll get in trouble. But,
yes, because they're video now, David. So you can't do it.
Yeah.
YouTube will take the video down.
I was going to do it, but then I got scared. You guys threatened me.
With a DMCA takedown.
I kill your friends and family to remind you of our love. And I believe you know how many seconds of stuff we can use before we have to pay money or get sued. That was under it, right?
No
it count
offense to
with that
Dave.
singing, though?
I was about to say, I think it has to be a fairly accurate representation.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
That was like on point.
Thank you for sticking with us, everyone. And here we are. We are now at our top 10. And as we said before, if we have a tie, we're just going to mention all the shows that are tied for the same amount of points, because the whole point of this podcast is to tell you about all the shows that have been cruelly cancelled. And at number 10, of course, we have our first tie. And at number 10, Blood Drive. So before he was Jack Reacher, Alan Ritchson was That Fucking Cop. That's the title of the first episode. That's not just, a statement of fact. He played a cop, Arthur Bailey, in a dystopian future sci-fi grindhouse horror show called Blood Drive, where, yes, cars run on blood, and by the end of the first episode, he has to take part in a race across America in tow with a femme fatale Grace, played by Christina Achea. Also of note is the kind of like ringmaster of the ceremony, a guy called Julian Sink, played by Colin Cunningham. Think kind of Marilyn Manson before he became even more problematic, but he's really funny in it. And the series just gets more and more deranged as it goes on. It was like, do you remember like when Tarantino did his Grindhouse movie and it was just super gory? And this was a Sci-Fi Channel one, so it pushed it as hard as it could for being on the Sci-Fi Channel. I actually bought the Blu-ray of this because I was like, this show is just not going to exist anywhere else. It was gory, it was funny, and it definitely had a great setup for a second series. Sadly, we never got it, but I'm sure Alan Ritchson doesn't mind because he's now Jack Reacher. Anyone else heard of Blood Drive?
Nope.
I heard about it, but I never followed through.
No, too many jokes. Too many jokes. David, what do you have at your joint for number 10?
I have Archive 81, which again was another Netflix show about a bloke that used to restore old film he was like an archivist, hence the archive, and he used to go around like looking at old film tapes and restoring them. And he got sort of intertwined into a cultist thing as he was reconstructing all of these different video footages, and it ended on a crazy cliffhanger that we'll now never know the end of, like every other Netflix fucking cliffhanger that exists, because they're dicks. It was we spoke about this on an episode really early on in the podcast, Neil, if you remember.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think I tried to pitch it to you and probably did an awful job.
But I still watched it
never
anyway,
watched
David.
it. You did watch it.
I watched it. Yeah, I watched
You watched it.
Yeah, I watched
Did
it.
you like
Enjoyed
it?
the whole
It
thing.
didn't make your top 10, Neil. What's your problem?
Because it's fine.
Neil?
Oh, burn.
Fine, Ben. Yeah. No, it was good, David. I enjoyed it. And as an editor, yes, I do like the fact that it was literally about an editor assembling stuff. And bizarrely, there's that video game out, isn't it, called Immortality that won all the awards a couple of years ago. And it literally, you could not design a video game.
Similar, yeah.
Where, yeah, the idea with that video game is there's this actress who went missing and she did all these like bad B movies. And the game, you're basically the editor and you've got these different little clips of scenes from the 3 different movies. And you have to click and zoom in on different bits of the frame to find a link to unlock the next bit. So you have no idea what the fuck's going on when you start it. And then as you unlock more clips, you start learning the story. And then if you play the clips backwards, crazy, freaky shit happens as well at certain points. And you know to play the clip back because your joypad starts rumbling. But that's not what we're here to talk about, David. So yeah, Arcade 81.
Yeah.
Any more?
It's not that old either. It's only like 2 years old, the show. It came out recently.
And it couldn't have cost a lot of money because most of it was literally just one dude at an editing bay.
In a house as well. Like
In a
one
house.
location, one actor for a lot of it. So it must have just we must have been the only people that watched it because it must have been cheap. I mean, the actor wasn't even that well known. Was it? Who was the actor that played in it?
We don't have time.
We do have time. It's, you know what, we don't. There's no chance of me being able to pronounce that name.
At number 9, we have a 4-way tie with 4 shows on the same amount of points. Jose, tell us about your one first.
So this will be the second and last show from ABC. It's Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. It stars Kristen Ritter, Dream Walker, and the James Vanderbeek. And also Dawson, yes. And for the record, yes, he plays an extremely funny version of himself as a celebrity in New York. It's honestly, it's one of those shows that it's at first glance, again, it just seems goofy and idiotic, but some of their reoccurring jokes are just hit every time after you kind of understand the whole premise. The whole idea of the show is really the Dreamwalker is a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed New Yorker moving into an apartment with a Kristen Ritter who's basically she hustles people or she just is a horrible person in general. But over the 2 seasons they become friends and they actually end up liking each other, and it's really, oh man, it's just really funny. I don't know how else to say. These things that they get into, just comic genius. And James Vanderbeek, he again, like this show was ahead of its time. It was 2012, and as a character in the show, James Vanderbeek creates GIFs for himself to use online, and I'm just like, what? Looking back into this, you're like, this was just envisioning the future. Like with it's amazing what these writers knew was going to happen. And so yeah, and it was just really funny. It was a really funny show.
Do you know what though, Jose? That isn't the only time James Vanderbeek has played himself, because he also played himself in Jay and Silent Bob Strike
Jay and
Back.
Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh,
Yo, it's a motherfucking Dawson.
You put your dick in a pie. You wouldn't last a day on the creek. A day.
that's funny.
And that was it. Jason Biggs says, fuck you and your Dawson's crap. Go to hell, Pacey. Go to hell. At least call me the right fucking character. Perfect. Beautiful dialogue there. Beautiful dialogue. Marie, what do you have at number 9?
I have, and I think this was the one main motivation for this list, is 1899, because
Yes.
I am still fucking fuming about that show being cancelled, because it was from the same people who brought you Dark, even some of the actors, and it was just this mystery, like, thriller that took place on a boat, and you knew
I'm there. It's on a boat. Anything
Is that a-
boat-based.
Yeah, it's a joke. Cruise ship
If Neil's
joke.
never told
Cruise
you
ship
before,
joke.
he
Oh,
worked
yeah.
on a cruise ship. He doesn't like to
His
talk
favorite
about
He
it.
movie
doesn't
is
like to
Speed
mention.
2, Cruise Control.
Yeah. But anyway, it takes place on like on a boat, and there is like something strange going on, but you don't know what, but you know something's off. And it's one of those where you really do have to pay attention and notice the details in the background. And one of the reasons I love this, and I think one of the reasons it did not do so well, I loved that everyone was speaking their own language. This is one of my biggest pet peeves in media, where someone is meant to be from a certain country, but they speak English. Because as someone who's like trilingual, it just drives me absolutely crazy, where there's no reason they speak English. And when they have an accent, it just makes it more confusing. Like, it's just. So the fact that they like made the effort to have everyone speak, because we have Portuguese, German, Spanish. When the Portuguese and German characters were interacting, that was a bit of a headache for me because I'm trying to learn Portuguese. So and English. And it's just, and then I read that they had so many different script supervisors there to make sure that all the languages stayed consistent. And there were scenes where the characters did not understand each other because, of course, they didn't, because it's a realistic when you're on like a boat. It's like almost like, let's say, a Titanic like setting. Everyone is coming from a different country. Everyone is, it makes sense. And it just, I love that aspect of it so much. And I appreciated the show for it so much. And yeah, and it ended up, and then it had like an amazing twist at the end.
Oh, yeah. We won't give away the twist, but
We won't give away this because I still encourage people to check the show out. And it's the fact it's from the people who brought us Dark, which was also phenomenal. It's just why Netflix didn't have the faith in it. Like, I was so excited for the show, like the second it was announced, because I liked Dark so much.
I'm amazed. Me and my dad watched it, and we like binged the whole thing in like less than a week. And I'm amazed he stuck with it, like, because it is quite mind bending. But he loved it. Although I think he may have loved more that this is one of my favorite recurring things from the show. The end of every episode, almost every episode. I'm not sure if it was everyone. It has a classic 70s rock song on it,
Mm-hmm.
and the lyrics of the song tie in perfectly. Like, there's a bit where there's a reveal of a character, and the song's called "The Wizard." It's Black Sabbath, "The Wizard," and you're like, fucking A. And again, the lyrics, again, it just, and they did it every episode. I was just there going, we were literally ticking off bands each episode going, it's got to be like Deep Purple. Oh, fuck, it is Deep Purple. Oh, Bad Company, Free. And it was all those kind of 70s classic rock bands in it.
And not just the ending, the theme was fucking White Rabbit from Jefferson Airplane.
Jefferson Airplane. That was it.
It worked so well. Like, it worked so well in setting up the world. And then like, yeah, that ending, like, because it was a period piece, but it ended up with modern music. It was, again, so telling to the overall plot. It was so well done.
I mean, without giving away the ending, I will say is that the twist at the end of the show would have changed the genre of the show for the second season. And I could not wait to see where that show would have gone.
Exactly.
I was so annoyed. That's the thing with a cancelled show. When they set something up so amazing and you don't get the payoff to it. And you're just like, whoa, we want to know what happens. Tell us, you absolute bastards.
Mm-hmm.
And relax as much as we can.
Yeah.
Well, Netflix aren't to blame for this next one. Ben, at number 9, you have.
This one is one of my favorite childhood shows from a kid. It was the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It ran, like 92 to 93. It was exactly what it says in the tin. It was like like every episode started with Indiana Jones, like the old Indiana Jones, like running into someone and like basically telling him a story of like when he was a kid, and he would either be like 8, 9, 10 years old, going with his parents somewhere. And I think he had a tutor as well. Like I think they went through Africa and places like that. Then like other episodes would be him as a teenager, where he joins like the Belgian army underneath an assumed name and fights in the World War. And like it was one of those like shows. For me, it was the first instance of like crossover, like true, like the movies were so successful that George Lucas was like, well, there's so many stories we could tell. So they had a guy who would play old Indiana Jones, and then for some of the episodes, Harrison Ford was actually in it to like bookend the seasons.
Okay.
Like it was really good. It was really well done. It was like so this kid like had to travel around the world with his family and the adventures and mischief that he would get up to as a kid, or it was like him in the Belgian army fighting in the World War. He becomes a spy at one point, and it gives you this like background to a guy that like who essentially is an art like an archaeologist who really has no place running around shooting guns like swinging on shit with a whip and being a badass.
But always room for punching Nazis. Always room.
Always room for punching Nazis in any, doesn't matter where you are in life, whatever time period you're in.
I just been flicking through the Wikipedia because I don't think I ever saw this back in the day. I
Really?
Somehow it bypassed me. I said that weird. Bypassed me. And I'm looking at some of the guest stars and people who were in this show.
Oh, hit me, go on.
Daniel Craig.
Amazing.
Christopher Lee. Clark Gregg.
Thanks.
Vanessa Redgrave. Elizabeth Hurley. Anne Hesh. Jeffrey Wright. Jason Fleming.
Oh,
John Pertwee. Holy Max von Sydow. Ian McDiarmid.
So like they like I said, it was like 92 to 93. They spent a huge amount of money on it. It didn't do very well in the ratings. And I don't know if it was like because they played them all out of sequence. Like I don't know if that was one of the
They
things
did a Firefly to
which
it.
we're going to talk about. Yeah, we're going to talk about a show later on where that happened. But like I don't know if that was the case because I definitely remember it being out of sequence in the UK.
Oh,
It was actually pretty clever because it was designed as like an educational piece. So it would Indiana Jones would go back and interact with a massive historical figure in some way, shape, or form that you would learn something about, and then move on to the next adventure. But the sheer fact that they got Harrison Ford back to reprise Indiana Jones, which no one ever really talks about, they had
man.
yeah, they set. I think they set up in this one that he had a daughter and grandkids. Which got blown out of the water by King of the Crystal Skull, which is another reason why true Indiana fans didn't acknowledge that existence. Yeah, but which they course corrected in the new one. They course corrected in the new one by killing him off in the off screen. So it kind of almost shifted back to a place where Indiana Jones could have a daughter and then she could have grandkids and stuff. So like it was great, and yeah, it was bigger than the budget they spent on it. It was a bigger idea. It was like George Lucas bringing his like movie ideas to the small screen. I just don't think it held up.
Do you know? I think the problem with it was, Ben, people didn't want to learn about history.
People hated education. It was the 90s, man. We're looking forward, not back.
Now, another show that ended on a cliffhanger, almost a literal cliffhanger. David, what do you have at number 9?
I've got the NBC show about the infamous Hannibal Lecter, called aptly named Hannibal. And it's starring Mads Mikkelsen as the man himself, and it also had Hugh Dancy in it as Will Graham. And it was about Will Graham as the FBI detective, and Hannibal Lecter gets on it like assigned to him as his psychiatrist. And it's essentially like Silence of the Lambs, except Hannibal Lecter's not, incarcerated. He's not in prison at this point. He's out and about, and he's helping out the FBI and trying to influence them from within. It is one of the best. I think this is the best TV show on my list, because some of the, as in, yeah, I'd say this is probably the best TV show on my list anyway. Like, because take personal enjoyment out of it, which is why others are ranked higher than it.
Nice.
I think,
nice.
yeah. I think some of the death scenes in it, where the FBI are investigating the murder scene, some of the set pieces, like sets that were done and drawn up for that, were just harrowing. And then just shots of Mads Mikkelsen, who deserved all the awards, Neil, to use your language, for his portrayal as Hannibal. He just him eating, man. Just him just having like his steak dinner and his cooking, like all the shots of him cooking, just in between takes and like in between scenes, and his like sitting there eating. And he has all these dinner parties, and it was such a good show.
And some of the cast, mate. I remember Gillian Anderson coming into it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and who else is in it? There was
Oh yeah,
Lawrence Fishburne was in it.
Yeah.
He was also amazing. Yeah.
Well,
It
what was
was.
clever? What was clever with the show is they started working through the actual books, didn't they? So they kind of did the Red Dragon stuff. Is it Red Dragon where you got Mason
I've not read the
Verger
books,
and the
so
pigs?
I have no idea about the books.
It was this weird, really creepy show. I remember some of the critics at the time didn't like it. When I say critics, I don't mean actual critics. I mean just the average people who watched it were like, "But it's so slow. Nothing's happened." Literally, there was a 2-minute sequence once of a snail on a bit of grass or something, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is going on here?" But I don't know. I do remember getting frustrated watching it, but then sticking with it because it was so good. And I was like, I'm going to accept whatever the hell they're trying to do here because I want to get to the
They
good
weren't
stuff.
afraid to make like bold decisions as well
Oh,
by
no.
killing off like main characters that were, or like the finales of some of the seasons where one of the main characters gets killed and then how she gets killed and then how she's presented as well after that in this like, because if you don't just get killed in that show, if Hannibal kills you or the other serial killers that they were trying to hunt down kill you, he's going to present you in some sort of, I remember a few of them are like angelic sort of scenarios where the guts are hanging out everywhere. And there was one like there's a famous art piece where they split a cow in half. I don't know if you guys have seen that, where like the
Damien
cow is like
Hirst.
split with who's that? Sorry,
Damien Hirst.
yes,
Damien
yeah.
Hirst.
So that
Yeah.
they do that, but with a person. They split a person like that with, and it's some of the deaths in it and how they're presented for them to solve. Yeah, it was such a good show.
It was cancelled on an actual cliffhanger.
Mhm.
So you're like, literally just going to be like, are these characters alive or dead? We do
We'll
not
never
know.
know. We'll
And
never
we'll
know.
never know. However, they've kept hinting at like doing a 4th season, or apparently Brian Fuller, because it's Brian Fuller of Pushing Daisies, and did he do the original Hero? I think he did the original Heroes as well. Brian Fuller of fame.
Yeah.
He did this show, and he's been working for years now to try and get the rights to the Silence of the Lambs, so he can actually make Silence of the Lambs, but with Mikkelsen playing Lecter.
Ooh, wow.
And I kind of want to see it. I like, you know,
100%.
as great as this is, I think if you've watched this show, 9 out of 10 people who watch this show will go, Mads Mikkelsen is better than Anthony Hopkins.
Wow.
Bold statement.
What do you think, David?
I mean, it depends on what film you watch. If you just watch Silence of the Lambs, no.
But if you watch the other ones that aren't as good,
Yeah. then potentially it's up there, yeah. But obviously Silence of the Lambs sticks there. It's its own.
okay. Well, moving on to number 8, we have a 3-way tie with Marie, Jose, and Ben's picks all on the same amount of points. Marie, what do you have at number 8?
Oddly fittingly enough, Sense8. So
Hey.
yeah,
Was
Sense8.
it cancelled because it was gay?
I mean, yeah, well, it was very gay, but I think the reason for this is that the budget, because Sense8 was a show, and this was early Netflix. Like this was when Netflix was quite empty. Like this was one of their like very first original series.
Is it
And-
that old?
Yeah,
I don't remember
2015.
it being that old. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was it was pretty it was like made by the Wachowskis. And
Ah.
the story goes that it's 8 people who are basically almost have like a psychic link between them and are connected from all over the world. And basically they're the next evolution of humans. And similar to like X-Men, that's why everyone hates them and wants to hunt them down. But the way like this works is basically the characters interact with each other in their own environments, and these characters were like all over the world. So we had like so that meant like they had to fly the entire cast around the world just to shoot a few couple of scenes, and it just got very, very expensive. But I generally loved the premise of this. I am like when someone like I love stories when people are like psychically linked. I love that concept. Except like the Aes Sedai and the Waters in the Wheel of Time, or like there's another book called The Ray Bearer, which is like similar to like Sense8, but young adult and far. Like Sense8 has a lot of orgies, I think, as well. So
Oh, yeah.
it's
And Jose's woken up. On brand.
maybe that's why it didn't gel with the like a lot of people. There is, yeah. I love different depictions of love and different different versions of relationships and platonic, polyamorous. Like I do really like those. I really like seeing those in media, and it just had such an interesting concept, and it was cancelled. Unfortunately, they did get enough of a heads up that it was gonna be cancelled, so they could actually conclude the story. But in my opinion, the way they concluded the story, it was extremely rushed. They didn't answer quite a lot of the questions that they set up. It literally ended with a bang. It ended with an orgy, and the like it's very classic to the show. But also like how the main conflict was resolved was also quite quick, without giving away spoilers, in my opinion. I really did like. I thought the show had so much potential, and I thought they could have explored it a lot more. And that's what sad is. The birth sequence could have been left out. I'm still very traumatized by that. If people seen the show, they know what I'm on about. But other than that, I thought it had a great cast, a solid premise. The only downside was the budget was just huge.
Was there a plan for more seasons then? They had a definitive endpoint for it, did they, where the story was going? Or
I'm not sure, but I definitely thought they would wanted more seasons out of it. Because the ending was extremely rushed, and there was like a lot of questions they did not answer. So I'm like, I think they did have like a proper conclusion in mind. They just had to rush it, which is really sad. Because I think they got to the conclusion that they wanted to, but it was missing some things in between.
they had to jump there a bit quicker than they wanted to be to get there.
Yeah.
Right. Jose, you've got a show next which stars an actor I love that I've never seen and only briefly heard of. How has this happened?
Well, the show was aired from 93 to 94, so
Probably why.
it's probably why it's
We probably never got it in the UK either, I don't think.
it's very American. It's the show of the Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. and the actor you're talking about is Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, Bruce.
It's about a bounty hunter looking for a set of criminals that killed his father collectively. The pilot was basically his father had rounded them all up. He was taking them to jail, and they were all in one big cabin. And then they all escaped and killed his father, basically going for revenge as a bounty hunter. Because he was apparently a very well-educated bounty hunter, Harvard-educated lawyer who decided he wanted to change his career to hunt down these bandits.
I'm looking at a synopsis myself, and it says basically it was a Western, however, it included elements of sci-fi and steampunk.
A little
How
bit
have
of
I not heard of this show?
It's more sci-fi than steampunk. It just had an inventor who was able to create things in a country western style. But yes, it was hilarious. It was another comedy. It lasted about 27 episodes, I believe. And so it went through a phase when I did some research again on this show. They realized it was one of those things where you were filming and writing the show as the season went on. So about halfway through, they decided to cut out the sci-fi aspect of it, and it became more of a traditional Western.
And is that
comedy.
why it got cancelled?
I don't know. I enjoyed it. I think the sci-fi aspect really drew me in as it being more than just a Western.
But Jose, at the end of the 27 episodes, did it have a definitive ending, or was it just cancelled when they had more to go?
That's the thing. I don't remember the ending of the show. I just think it ran its season, and then they just never really renewed it. Because in my head,
that's been called cancelled.
Yeah, well, no, but I'm saying I don't think it ended on a cliffhanger, so I don't know if they knew they were.
But you didn't watch it, so you don't know.
Oh, I did watch it. I remember watching it.
Plot twist.
I did watch it. I watched it enough to where I thought it was two different seasons because of the fact that they kind of got away from the sci-fi.
And they did 27 episodes in one season.
27. That's a lot. Yeah, that kind of tells you back then there was just a whole different world.
All right, so number 8. This is one of the cancellations which irked me horrendously when they got cancelled.
You get a cream for that.
It's a show called Flash. Shut your face. It's a show called Flash Forward. It was basically the show in a nutshell was a phenomenon happens around the world. You're seeing it from the point of view of the residents of Los Angeles. I'm just going to read the synopsis there as they go about their daily duties, unaware that a mysterious about is about to change their lives. FBI agents Mark Benford, played by Joseph Fiennes, and Dimitri No, who is played by John Cho.
John Cho.
So John Cho, like couple of heavy hitters there straight away. Are in a car chase. Benford's physician wife in the middle of surgery. Benford's friend Aaron Stark works on power lines above high ground. Suddenly, something causes everybody in the world to black out for just over 2 minutes. Everybody in the world. And during that time, each person has a dream and sees a series of events in their own future. Some good, some bad, some apparently non-existent. As people begin to piece together their visions on a worldwide website, Mark and Dimitri use the information to try and pinpoint the cause of the blackout, as they are FBI investigators. And then people start to try and like if it's bad, they try and change that. If it's good, they try and drive forwards to that. If they didn't have a dream, the theory is that you were dead before this point in time. And you find out that everybody saw the same point in time as well. The reason that this really pissed me off when it got cancelled is because you start to get a sense, you're getting towards the day that everybody saw, right? Everybody saw the same day. And as you get towards that day, you see people's fates happening the way that they're going to, that they saw in their dreams. And it doesn't seem like anything they can do can change it. And then something happens and maybe someone does change it, but then a second, like just as you figure out that people are starting to get a hand on this thing, another blackout happens. Everybody passes out again. And that's the end of the last episode.
Bastards.
Oh my God.
So it was like everyone's getting a hand on it. The day comes, everything happens like the way it was panned out, and then everyone blacks out again. So it was like, what? It was genius because the flash forwards, it sets up the next season, and then you didn't get to see it.
This is my favorite pitched concept so far for a show I've not seen.
Really?
This is the one that's got me at the moment. Yeah,
It's so good.
Ben sold me.
When it came out in 2009, everyone was calling it the new Lost.
Yeah.
I also had Dominic Monaghan in it as well from Lost. Jack Davenport was in it as well, but it was written and created by Brannon Braga and David S. Goyer, who Star Trek guys, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So it had that kind of thing to it. Bizarre as well, the music in it was Ramin Djawadi right back before his Game of Thrones days as well. So I've learned that now.
If you flash forwarded and if you were dead, what did you just see nothing?
Did you see nothing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have been on the toilet or something like that.
But it took people ages to figure that out as well. It was really well paced. It was really well put together. It was a fucking banging show. It was like there was enough action in it to keep the adrenaline junkies in, and it was smart enough to keep like the cerebral people invested.
Cool.
And speaking of pace, we need to pick up the pace here and move on to number 7 when we have a 5-way tie. So we're going to have to run through this very quickly. And all 5 of us have got different shows for this. So I have a show called Carnival or Carnivale because it had an E on the end.
Show.
It was created by a guy called Daniel Knauf, and it was a weird show that I couldn't stop watching. It was a dark period fantasy drama about the lives of a traveling carnival in America's Dust Bowl during the Great Depression. There were struggles between good and evil, and a mythology that drew from Christianity, the Masons, and even the Knights Templar. The star of all people was Nick Stahl. Do you remember him from Terminator 3? The kid from Terminator 3? That was him.
Yeah.
Played a guy called Ben Hawkins, a young man who has healing powers. And of course, I remember the opening episode. He's like, he finds a bird dying in a field, and he goes and touches the bird, and the bird comes alive, and then everything else in the field dies. So it already sets up this awesome, he can heal, but it takes something away from somewhere else. So that was really cool. And he joins the carnival when it passes through his town. The other plot, because that was like your main A plot, then your B plot of the show, was this Methodist preacher called Brother Justin, played by the brilliant Clancy Brown, Kurgan from Highlander. And they both begin to share the same kind of dreams about this battle in the future between good and evil and how they both think they're on the right side of it. So that was what was good about Brown's character. He thought he was doing like the godly thing, and you're watching and go, no, he's an absolute evil priest bastard. But the slow burning plot puts them on a collision course. The show also had Amy Madigan, Carla Gallo, Michael J. Anderson from Twin Peaks, Clea Duvall amongst the ever expanding cast, and it had brilliant viewing figures in the first season. I think it was a HBO show as well, if I remember rightly, and it had great reviews again in the second season, but the viewers just weren't there in the second season, and it's frustrating because Nell said he'd planned out the show for 6 seasons, of which we only got 2. It's an awesome show. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. I don't know where it is now, but yeah, it was originally HBO. Jose, you have a show called Almost Human.
Yes, 2013. Damn, Neil, you will be surprised how short this was going to be.
That's what she said.
How old are
Almost
we?
Human 13. We haven't matured past that. Almost Human 2013 from Fox again. This is actually my number 3 show. Carl Urban, Carl Urban, plays a cop in the future. He's injured. He comes back. He gets set up with what's that word?
Robot partner,
partner. He gets set up with a partner who's an android played by Michael Ealy. There's a lot of other characters. Mackenzie Crook, Minka Kelly's involved. Basically, they solve crimes. And to wrap it all up very shortly, it's a mix of Will Smith's iRobot, a buddy cop duo, and more recently, the creator. Because there's a lot of, hey, what's sentience and what is not. And there's a lot of, it was a really good show. And I think it had a lot of potential. I just think that it was ahead of its time and people weren't ready to deal with androids having freedom,
Bastards.
And also
Rise of the Machines. Rise of the Machines.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's it. I feel like that's the quickest way I could describe it.
It was a great show. I loved it. I agree with Jose. It was a great show.
Same. I agree. Carl Urban should be in more stuff all the time.
Judge Dredd Part 2.
Yes, give us Judge Dredd 2, you utter bastards. Ben, I love this show you've talked about. No one else has brought it up, but it's an amazing show. And that show is?
Yeah. It's called Year of the Rabbit. It's Matt Berry's, it was his latest project after he's done Toast of London and Toast of New York and stuff like that. It's basically set in Victorian London. Detective Inspector Rabbit, portrayed by Matt Berry, teams up with his hapless by-the-books partner Strauss, who was played by Freddie Fox, who you might know from Slow Horses.
Spider.
He plays Spider in Slow Horses, exactly. This is an out-and-out comedy. It's fucking ridiculous. Spectre Rabbit is a hardened booze hound. He's seen it all. Rabbit's been chasing bad guys for as long as he can remember, but these days his heart keeps stopping at inopportune moments. And he sums it up by saying, "My jam tart stopped. You got to punch me in the chest." It's fucking weird. Also, one of his confidants, one of his go-to guys is the Elephant Man. Now, none of this is in any way, shape, or form supposed to be accurate, apart from the fact that it's set in Victorian London. One of the episodes, they're chasing a guy called the Brick Man who kills people and leaves brick dust behind. And it's weird. I have never laughed so hard as I have watching this show. The opening of the first episode is genius. He's interrogating a suspect, and he's like, "Where did you stash the girl? Where did you stash?" This guy's crying. He's like, "Oh my god, I don't know." Rabbit's wailing on him, and the guy breaks. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll tell you anything. Anything you want to know." And then the tone shifts. Rabbit stands up and it is actually talking to a class full of kids and says, "And that is how we break a suspect." and it goes from there into fucking utter ridiculousness. It is one of the funniest, most ridiculous shows. I was so excited for a second season. If they'd have just given me 2 seasons, it would have been great because it was only 6 episodes. So yeah, Matt Berry being peak Matt Berry, absolutely ridiculous. There's just a guy in the police station whose catchphrase, completely out of context, would just go, "Yeah, it's time to shit or get off the pot." And it made no sense. It made no sense to what was going on in the episode. It was just pure genius.
And what I liked is as well, it was building, it was really funny every episode. But then he had Keely Hawes came into it as kind of like this rich Victorian woman, maybe villain, as it kind of went on.
Yep.
And there was such good setup with her. Because I remember they set all these threads up for the next series. And then, of course, no next series.
Next series.
Bastards.
Yep.
Well, David, your show, I think,
I
is the
don't-
only one that we can disqualify. 'Cause
Does it
had
count?
8 seasons. No, it doesn't count. It had 8
Yeah,
seasons.
but it
and
was
they
still
didn't
cancelled. If you Google it, it says it was cancelled.
After
They just
6
decided they
seasons,
just didn't want to
even
do
8
it anymore.
seasons,
I think.
wasn't it?
Yeah, but it didn't run for 9
it,
or
it
10.
ran
Neil.
2
Did it
extra
run for 10
seasons.
seasons, Neil?
Most shows do not need to run for 10 seasons.
8 seasons. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It could
ran
have done
for
a
8
Friends,
seasons.
you know.
Love
It
it.
could have gone.
Love
It could have
this
gone the
show.
whole 10. And see,
But-
Jose's with me. Jose wants more Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
But
One of the
I-
many amazing Michael Schur shows.
Oh yeah, it was one of the best sitcoms of its time. It still is. It's one up there with one of the best sitcoms. But it ran for 7 great seasons.
But
And
was
then-
it cancelled or not, Neil? That's the question.
Yes, David, because they didn't want to
There
do it
you go.
anymore.
So it's
Not net-
on my
not-
list.
Not ABC not want to do it. They didn't want to do it anymore because COVID meant that half the people couldn't be on the set for the final series. Scully and
Oh.
Hitchcock were not there. They were just on iPads the whole season. And it was shot in the peak of COVID. And you're just like, it's just people in the rooms. And you could just tell it didn't work. There wasn't that same energy that the previous seasons had. And also,
Half the
There was a
world's
lot-
dying.
well, exactly, half the world's dying. And also there was a lot of police brutality going on in America at that time. You know, more so
Yeah.
than usual. And I remember Andy Samberg doing an interview going, we don't really want to make a comedy about everyone liking cops at the minute. We'd like rather just, hold our hands up and walk away. And, that's why it got cancelled, David.
I feel
They decided to cancel it.
I feel they
Yes.
handled it pretty well because the Rosa
No.
character. I think
it
it's
just
as
got
well as it could have been.
as well as it could have been. I just don't think I think they should have ended it at 7 because it
Love
didn't
Rosa.
work because of COVID and it was a little bit preachy in the last season. And it had to be a bit more serious.
Rosa is Mirabelle in Encanto, which is
Yeah.
also a good film.
Wow.
There
What
you
a way
go.
to shift that conversation.
Well, we're going to shift it once more because we're going to shift it to a show, Marie's show at number 7, that I have never heard of.
Yeah.
And I think only maybe David has heard of this one.
Have I? I haven't checked the list.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so this show, and I think it might be the only animated one on our list. So this is called
Oh.
The Owl House, and it was put out by Disney, and it is a beautiful, whimsical show where a human falls through a portal and finds herself in a world called the Boiling Isles, which is like this fairy tale with a horror twist, a fairy tale world with a horror twist. And so the world was really interesting. The characters were so lovable. The animation was fucking incredible. And it was just incredible and also extremely gay. And it got canceled after 2 seasons. And I think this was one of those cases that Ben was mentioning earlier where Disney got actually a new CEO and then they decided to cancel the show. I'm not 100% sure that's true, but I remember reading something along those lines. They did get a final season, which they, after the fan outrage, they gave us like 3 episodes to actually conclude the story, which they were really amazing, but they could have ran for so much long. And it's just, if you like Gravity Falls, you will like The Owl House. It's like in that vein of humor and whimsy, and it's just so beautiful and so much fun. And I really love this show.
Wow.
I'm
Because
in.
you're
I'm
our,
sold.
you was our regular Disney guy, David.
I hadn't heard of it. I'm gonna watch it.
Good.
Watch
there you
it,
go.
watch
Being
it, you will
added.
love it.
Right, so moving on to number 6, and thankfully we only have a 3-way tie this time. Don't worry, as we get higher up, we are literally just one shows for a lot more numbers coming up soon. And the first one I'm going to mention is The OA. Created and produced by Zal Bakmanj and star of the show Britt Marling, The OA was a deeply strange yet hypnotic mystery drama sci-fi show that was cancelled after only 2 seasons in a planned 5-season arc. And honestly, the twist at the end of the 2nd season is an all-timer. I will not ruin that here because the creators are still trying to find a way to get the show off Netflix and finish it themselves. But of all the shows on this list that didn't get a chance to end the story, for me, The OA is the most egregious because it does something so... It's along the lines of 1899 in that it does a twist that it's going to change the genre of the show for the upcoming season that we never got. But even before that twist at the end of the 2nd series, as Stefan from Saturday Night Live would say, this show has everything. It's got a psychic octopus called Old Night. It's got a title card for the show that comes up over 70 minutes into the pilot episode. It has dimension hopping. It's got time travel. It's got an evil Jason Isaacs. Honestly, it's a show that is so well crafted and self assured that for the most of the first season, every episode you're thinking, what the fuck is going on? But also, why can't I stop watching? It's like there's just something magnetic about it. I mean, people do like these kind of like Tai Chi movements and start humming, and then that lets them travel to different universes. It's absolutely crazy. You've got actors playing different alternate versions of themselves. It's just an insane show. And yeah, like I say, it's got such a next level twist that we were robbed off. Did anyone here quickly watch the OA?
Did not.
I saw the first episode and I was bored.
Jose, you're banished. Banished to the Phantom Zone with a spinning disc.
I was like, where is this going? I think I watched maybe 2, honestly. I was just like, I know this is apparently gonna go somewhere because people told me to watch it. Like, because I think I watched it a year or 2 after it came out, and I was just like, I don't see what the hype is, honestly. I mean, I knew there was a mystery to it, but it just didn't get it.
Okay, still banned to the Phantom Zone. David, another potential disqualification coming up for you here.
Well, no, why? Why are you disqualifying all the? Why can't you let me have nice things?
Why
don't you understand-
why don't you understand what cancellation means?
Don't you
Heroes,
understand the rules of the podcast?
Heroes was cancelled, Neil. It was cancelled because it was terrible. Okay,
Yes.
and it was terrible because there was a writer's strike in season 2, and it was just awful after that.
But if
Yeah.
the cancellation is justified, like
Marie, I hope you're on my side here. Okay, I don't want to. Okay,
I'm not. I'm just asking because like the whole point is egregious cancellations, and if this
Egregious
yeah, no.
cancellation.
So I want justice for Heroes. Okay, Heroes was a fucking amazing TV show in season 1. It was
Season 1 was
so
great.
good.
In season 1.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was the writer's strike, and then it just became utter dog shit. It was basically cancelled after season 1.
Whatever happened
That's
to
what
Peter
happened. It was
Petrelli's girlfriend
cancelled
in
after
the
season 1.
future? No one
Yeah.
knows. She's still
No,
there.
yeah, whatever. Nobody
It's like,
knows, man.
it's like in Deadpool. Why is Thor crying?
Why is
Like-
Thor crying?
Similar to Ben in the other show we mentioned earlier, I had a massive crush on Hayden Panettiere, and she started dating Vladimir Klitschko, so that was a little intimidating for me. But she's not anymore. So I think she's still available.
I mean, you're also married with a child now.
I was
so-
about to
I'm-
say that.
I can make it work, Jose.
Is she on your laminated list?
Ooh. Yep, that makes sense.
She your hall pass?
Oh yeah, buddy. She's
Yeah,
there.
But David,
Yeah.
the point being is, as I round this off with a firm fist, an iron fist, if you will. It
Well,
had-
apparently not.
The
No,
reboot doesn't count either, just because it was bloody awful. Okay, that doesn't. No, you don't. The issue it has is it was that this happened after Marvel, and now every second TV show seems to have a superhero twist. So now this show is left just way behind on what other TV shows are doing with superhero writing, and even like the effects and just the production value of it isn't there. So when you bring a TV show back, it just needed to be. I'm just sad that it never got to be what it could have been, which is one of the best TV shows ever.
I've got
It wasn't.
to agree. I've got to agree. Season 1, "Save the cheerleaders, save the world" was the phrase of the year. It cancelled itself, man. Like it fucked
Yeah,
itself over
it
so
did.
hard. I don't think this counts in the conversation that we're talking about right now. But I am 100% with you. I wanted seasons 2, 3, 4, and 5 to be like as good as season 1 and for them to take it and run with it. But they didn't. They fucked themselves. They cancelled themselves. It doesn't count in this list, but it is egregious.
It's egregious.
Thank you, Ben.
But also the recap.
No, let's leave it there. You don't.
No?
No, you don't need to. You don't need to.
And well, actually, I'm going to argue with Ben on this next one anyway, because this is a show that actually has delivered on all the seasons it was about to it promised, and that show is probably my second favorite sitcom of all time, or sometimes joint top, and that is Community. Ben,
6 seasons of the
defend yourself.
movie.
6 seasons of the movie.
I've got to defend myself as to why it was cancelled. Like I wanted one more season out of Community. I wanted one more season. It went through fucking all sorts of fucking hell. I wanted them to end on something fucking brilliant and magical and incredible. Maybe we get the movie, maybe we don't. I wanted one more season just to round it all out. I wanted I wanted Jeff Winger to become the dean. I wanted, just ridiculousness. but also in the way that it was written, like Dan Harmon's like perfectly mangled mind. I just wanted another season. I'm selfish. Fuck you.
I mean, even Abed said 6 seasons in a movie.
He did.
Who are you to
Could have
argue
been
with
a
Abed?
Could have been a TV movie.
Well, that's what we're getting.
Let me just say,
Yeah.
Jim
At some
Rash
point.
was an amazing side character as
Oscar-winning Jim Rash,
Jim Rash. Yeah,
because he wrote
like,
The Descendants.
I think one of my favorite moments was when he was dressed up and he started rapping.
Rapping,
And
yeah.
he got
The
intense.
rapping peanut
He's like,
bar.
oh my god, I don't know what I went into. It was just like
Barack
so hard to
Obama is
describe.
scared of me.
It's just he added so much to that show.
Don't you? Like we say, Neil. Would you say that like more community would be a bad thing?
Never.
There you go. Then I don't need to defend myself. You just agreed with me. Move on to the next thing.
Okay, and that brings us up to number
Knockout champ.
5. Number 5, where we have a tie with 3 shows, but 2 of these shows are 2 of the people's number 1 shows. And we're not going to do those first. We're going to do.
We need a new system for making points. This is very
Yeah,
complicated.
the maths are not mathing.
Right. I'm going to mention the show number 5 that had quite a few points, and that show is Lockwood & Co., a show we briefly mentioned earlier. Had a massive fan base. It was cancelled, and it was a young adult horror drama starring Ruby Stokes, Cameron Chapman, and Ali Haj Hashmati as Lucy Carlyle, Anthony Lockwood, and George Karim. And the premise was, in a future alternate version, present-day Britain, ghosts are deadly to the touch and have been rising from their graves for 50 years because of this phenomenon known as the problem. Technical advances have stopped. For example, there's no internet and people still use cassette recorders. Adults cannot see the ghosts, but children can, so teenagers have been organised into licensed ghost hunting agencies to detect and dispose of threats. Lucy Carlyle is a gifted teenager. She runs away from home, comes to London, and hopes of catching work at an agency. Running out of options, she applies for a job at a tiny outfit run by 2 boys in an old townhouse, Lockwood & Co. Now, this was such a fun show. It was based on a series of books by Jonathan Stroud. So they had the material, and they committed the cardinal sin of ending the show on a cliffhanger, because all season we've been hinted that Lockwood was finally going to reveal what was in this locked room. The young cast were all superb, and shout out justice for Lily Newmark, Norrie, Lucy's best friend, who ends up in a coma in the first episode, who never wakes up. And you just like, if you cast her, she's probably going to come back, this actress. She's also in Sex Education, got written out of that for the 4th season, just disappeared. And her character was also in, very memorably, for one scene of The Free Body Problem, and gets mushed by a truck. So I was just like, if the show had come back, at least she would have got to actually finish a role for once. But Lockwood & Co., so well done. It's actually scary as well, and a great gateway horror for younger audiences. And the central trio all killed it with their performances. So, of course, Netflix cancelled it. Also, I think I said at the time, Cameron Chapman is a good shout for 10 years down the line to be Bruce Wayne when you need a new Batman again.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah, give them 10 years when they need that thing, or if they need a younger looking Bruce Wayne, he's your guy.
I mean, I think we have enough Batman, but true. But like another thing that this show did was it encouraged me to read the books. So I actually do know what's behind that door. And the books are so good. And then I read the books and I watched the show, and they did such a loyal adaptation. Like book 2, they took some liberties, but I did understand it. Not someone like, oh, they ruined the whole series. No, they did some creative changes. But they adapted book 1 like extremely loyal, because season 1 was book 1 and book 2. And it's so annoying because there are only 6 books, so they could have told this story in 3 seasons, and they just canceled it as it did. So I highly recommend checking out the books. And if you also want to like talk about justice, Ruby Stokes, who played Lucy, she was actually the original Francesca in Bridgerton, and she left because of Lockwood & Co.
Oh.
Yeah.
And if they recast her now?
They've recast her, and she was the main character. She was one of the main characters in season 3.
She was the main character of this one,
season 3, and we'll probably get her own story in season 5, I think. So yeah.
It makes it worse because she went on to do there was a Paramount Plus streaming show called The Burning Girls, which was Samantha Morton. It was like this horror, kind of like folky horror show. And it's only because friend of the show, Charlie Gallagher, he's friends with the author of that book. And then we watched the show and it wasn't very good. She was great in it. Samantha Morton was great in it. And that's one of these shows that was cancelled I mean, it was only one book, one season anyway, but it's one that's just been wiped off the service again. It's like nowhere. Show doesn't exist.
I know.
Justice for Ruby Stokes.
You mixed
Now,
up the two characters.
Speaking of justice, Marie, this is your number one show. Gentlemen, prepare yourselves.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is an egregious insult that this ended up on number 5 on our list. I mean,
Who else here, though, has actually seen this show first, bar me and Marie?
Need to hear the show first, Neil.
how fucking dare you? It's it's Our Flag Means Death. I want my gay pirates back. So this show,
Maria, I have a feeling that the algorithm is just giving you more of what you want, not just throwing random stuff your way.
no. So yeah, there's a certain theme to my list. Anyway, so this it's not the algorithm, it's my life. So this show, it was by Taika Waititi and Rhys Darby, and when this was announced that these two were involved, I was already excited because I really do enjoy Tyga's work, and I love Rhys Darby from Flight of the Conchords and The Boat That Rocked, and I think he's an incredible actor, and you don't see him that often. And the story goes that Rhys Darby is a pompous aristocrat who gives up his life of wealth to pick up pirating, and he is a very, very terrible pirate. And Taika Waititi plays Blackbeard, and it is just such a fun show. The ensemble cast is brilliant, brilliant. There's just so many great lines, and what's more annoying that I personally found season 2 better than season 1. I thought season 2 rose to a new level. It was so funny. The Calypso episode was, oh my God, so good. And yeah, they canceled it, and the HBO canceled it, and there was a petition going on. We had a billboard in Times Square. Someone literally like had a truck that like flash "Save Our Flag Means Death" outside of the HBO offices.
Wow.
Then there was, I think, a billboard in Piccadilly Circus or something because they really wanted the BBC to pick them up. So because then the campaign went to the UK. So the fan effort was there, but unfortunately no one wanted to pick up the show, which is such a missed opportunity. And I think it didn't help that also season 2, I think, aired during the writer's strike, so they couldn't even promote it. And just seeing all these characters, seeing all these actors talk about the show, like there's so much love there. And yeah, it's just such a good, funny show. Check it out.
It's got Hoda. It's got Hoda from Game of Thrones in it.
Yes.
The gay pirate. What more do you need?
Yeah.
I have actually seen the first like three or 4 episodes of the show. And
So you're
I've
the
seen
blame,
I've seen
David.
well, I'm one of the reasons. Yeah, I didn't vibe with it, if I'm honest. I'm sorry.
I saw the
Marie.
first season. I thought it was fantastic. I hadn't watched the second season because I knew it got cancelled. So I was like, I didn't want to disappoint myself by watching the second season,
Oh,
getting to the end of it and being bummed out. You know,
But that's another thing. The second season didn't come on BBC. Like season 1 was on
It
BBC,
didn't.
but season 2 never came on BBC nor Disney Plus. So
And it was like
Yeah.
a year's
So-
wait
yeah.
as well for it to
Yeah.
come over here.
Yeah, but it was genius because it was it scared a lot of people because it is very queer. But I think it pirates and like mashing
Historically
but,
queer. Yeah.
yeah. So like
There's
it was,
evidence
but
there.
it was for me it was like it rang true of like Hot Fuzz where they're writing the story and then halfway through writing the story they're like, oh, actually the love story is between the two guys. It's between Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. And then so like I had flashbacks to that, and Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies of all time, and like watching this show and just like seeing like the development of Rhys Darby's character and how you learn about him, and like he's like the whole story is him running away from his married life to like hang out with guys on a boat. Like it's fucking like even just that as a synopsis, I'm like I'm in. I'm gonna watch the shit out of this. It's fucking great. But honestly, I couldn't bring myself to watch the second season because I knew it was cancelled and I was gutted. And I'm kind of saving it. I'm like, I'm going to watch it at some point and I'm going to be bummed out when I get to the end of it because it's fucking brilliant.
It does kind of end on like a kind of sort of conclusion, but they could have given us more seasons. And I wanted a Fly of the Conchords cameo. Like they needed a Fly of the Conchords cameo.
As I was just mentioned, as we briefly mentioned earlier, Taka's most recent show Time Bandits has just been cancelled as well. And Taka was in that playing the Supreme Being, and Jermaine Clement was in it playing Pure Evil. And I was like, come on, season 2, you have to get Murray in it, and you also have to get Brett in it. And now that's not going to happen because they've cancelled it as well. You utter bastards.
Is YTT on a bit of like a down?
No,
like a down.
I just think
slope,
it's
think?
public
Like,
opinion of him. I honestly think it's public opinion. Nick Skull wins. Great little film.
Yes.
Back to like doing what he does. I think the only thing that he really can take crap for is his acting in some films where he's coming in a bit part role and people don't like him because of him coming in playing that kind of role. But his own content, his own shows, no, there hasn't been a thing. For Love and Thunder is the one thing that a lot of people hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even I didn't hate it. I just didn't think it was any good. Problem is, I think Ragnarok is so good.
Yeah.
And you know, the 1-2 of Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit back to back. You know, he literally won an Oscar for
epic.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And then suddenly, I think the media just got tired of him being everywhere and started shitting on him, basically. And his content, his stuff's just as good, man.
His content with Rita Ora is sort of like everywhere. So there's a lot of Taika Waititi around it in the world right now, and I think it's creating a bit of a bit of a bottleneck.
He's getting a bit of a backlash, isn't he, for just being himself, really?
A little bit.
Which is honest, bizarre because that's what everyone loved about him in the first place.
Also, there's so many more worse people in Hollywood. That's what I do not understand.
I would just say Thor: Love and Thunder was not as good as Thor. You stopped me in my tracks.
She said there was many worse people in Hollywood. I just had a cough.
Yeah. Thor: Love and Thunder is probably the only one that I really just did not like, and it seemed like he just phoned that one in. Honestly, it could have been better, but yeah, I mean, Taika Waititi does put out really great stuff.
Yeah, right. And David, your number one show, which is our joint number 5.
I'm sad that you guys didn't put it even anywhere near your lists. Has anyone seen this film? It's the Santa show. Sorry, not film. We're not talking films. Films don't get cancelled. Santa Clarita
That girl
Diet.
says hello.
Santa Clarita Diet. Hands up.
Yes.
No.
Yeah,
I heard about
should
it.
have been on your top 10,
Heard
Ben.
it's really
Why is it
good.
not on your top 10?
It was good. You know what? It didn't make my top 10 because I didn't realize it was cancelled.
Dude,
No.
that's the problem I had. That was the
What?
heartache I had with it. Okay, that's the thing. I'll get into it. Let me explain what Santa Clarita Diet is. So, it's starring Drew Barrymore and Timothy Oliphant. Again, I have a massive crush on Timothy Oliphant. So
Well earned.
and he's also in Deadwood, isn't he, Neil? You little cocksucker. And it's about Drew Barrymore's character Sheila, the real estate agents, and she becomes a zombie essentially, and it is them just dealing with her being a zombie in this comedic real life sort of scenarios of a married couple dealing with the ramifications of that and all the scenarios they get into, and the daughter's boyfriend / friend that becomes a boyfriend. It's just it's such a funny show. The scenarios they get into it, the little ball with legs. It's honestly, it was one of my favorite shows of all time, from comedy shows of all time, and it got cancelled. And I, like Ben, I didn't even fucking realize it was cancelled because there was nothing. They just cut that, didn't say anything. I've only found out by a few years ago, Googling when's the next season of Santa Clarita Diet coming out, because I was having like withdrawal symptoms. I wanted, I needed to see that cliffhanger because it ended on a massive cliffhanger as well. And then it's like, oh, it's been cancelled. Can you just imagine the heartbreak I went through that day?
Yes, I can.
It was crushing.
3 seasons from 2017 to 2020, so it probably just suffered the same fate of many shows with COVID.
Jose, that's probably accurate. But can you just
Does it make
imagine
you
my
feel better?
heartache, Jose? It doesn't make me feel better. No, it needs to come back.
I wouldn't be surprised if the actors' salaries came into play too, because it's Drew Barrymore and Timothy Oliphant. They're very big names, and it's hard to keep up with a show.
I think Oliphant is a lot more.
Netflix are fucking struggling for a few quid, aren't they?
I mean, actually, they are broke, so technically.
Are they?
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
this week.
No, like
They're broke like how big football teams keep spending millions each year and then going, oh yeah, we haven't got to pay it back yet.
Oh,
Oh, it's such a funny show, man. Like she'd just casually kill someone and start eating them, and he'd have to he was the best husband. Like I'd love him to
was,
be my
wasn't he?
husband.
He was
such
so
a good
dedicated
husband.
to her as well. And it was like what's funny about it is that like, marriage is on the rocks when she dies. And it's like how they could become closer as he's like having to like pick up after her, like eating people. It's fucking excellent. It's like, and the kid, the boy next door kid, like he's fucking great. Like
So
honestly, it's like it's cross between like it's like The Burbs, kind of like
man.
that's the Tom Hanks movie, right? It's like
Yeah.
The Burbs crossed with like. God, I don't even know what to cross it with. What's that fucking
A
just give me
zombie.
like
iZombie.
iZombie. That's why I never watched Santa Clarita
Why zombie?
Diet,
Yeah.
because iZombie was out at the same time. It was either one
Yeah.
or the other a zombie show.
That lasted a couple seasons, right? Because I liked it and I watched
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
yeah.
two.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
should just check it out, Marie. Even if just check it out. Honestly, every
Just
single
for-
one of you.
just
watch
for
it.
Timothy
It's
Oliphant's
It's
hair.
so funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here is a show that I think David and Marie, I don't think will know because of their age, and the other three of us
Ages.
will know. And that show, our number 4, surprisingly high on the list because it was high on mine and Jose's lists. And that is a show from Fox from 1995 called Space Above and Beyond. Terrible title.
I wouldn't say that.
It's a terrible title.
It's a
Jose.
very 90s title. Very 90s title.
So this is a sci-fi action show that opens with, of all people, Jim from Neighbours, Alan Dale, and then he gets horribly murdered, giving a speech on a planet. So
for the record, he's the dad of Penny from Lost, not Penny's
yeah.
boat. Yes.
He's also most known in the UK because he was Jim in Neighbours, which is like an Aussie sitcom that is on every day for about the last 30 years.
See,
in,
that
the
part I
Robinson.
didn't know.
Jim Robinson from Neighbours he pops up all over the place.
He's
Isn't
in
he
24?
in, he's in America, Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Like he's like
Oh,
he's
man.
everywhere.
He's been loads of stuff, man. But so this show was created by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, who had previously worked on The X-Files, and they would go on to birth the Final Destination films as well. So this show is a big sci-fi action show, and it's set in the year 2063-64, and it starts with many of Earth's colonies and Earth itself being attacked by a race of aliens called the Chigs. Outgunned and losing badly, the bulk of the show featured on the Wildcards crew of a Space Cavalry division. So think, like Space Marines. Now, the show's lead actress was Kristen Cloak, who played Captain Shane Vanson. And you might remember she was in the X-Files a little bit. She's also married to Glenn Morgan as well in real life.
I'd like to say it was more of an ensemble. At the time, she wasn't that big. She also did go on to be a character in Final Destination that died.
Yeah, because her husband is the guy, one of those guys. I don't actually know which one it is. But there wasn't that many other big names. Even looking back at the cast list now, the only people I remembered who've gone on since was James Morrison, who again was in a lot of X-Files and Chris Carter stuff, and Tucker Smallwood, who I think turned up in Smallville and other kind of a lot of like those shows of the thing. So there was lots of space dogfights. There was humanity on the verge of extinction. They even brought in a third-party AI to fight these kind of like human-looking robots here called silicates that have been chased off Earth in the AI wars. This is 95, and they're going on about the AI wars, man.
Androids again.
But looking back on it now, this show is very military-based and really gritty for the time. So how can this have not been a major influence on the reboot of Battlestar Galactica? Because this is in all but name Battlestar Galactica in terms of, and this was a decade before the reboot happened. I rewatched a bit of watched some of the old promos and rewatched a bit of the first episode because it's all online the other day, and I was like, this is such a touch point for Battlestar, man. You wouldn't have had Battlestar, I don't think, if this hadn't been around, and no one talks about it because it only ran for one season. And also, they, as you mentioned, Jose, when we was talking off camera, off pod a little while back, they knew it was getting cancelled, so they just decided to kill almost every character in the finale.
Yeah,
just go out in a blaze of glory and just murder everyone.
It was such a gut-wrenching finale, but they did it so well. I was like, no, but awesome. The way they died was guns blazing, literally. It was a good ending. It was sad to see it go, but I guess since they knew, they just decided, fuck it, let's just go out. And it was just a really good show. They had a lot of land action too. Like they didn't stay everything in space, and just the sets of the planes, like the dock, was really cool, honestly.
Right. So this brings us up to our number 3, and this is because of me and Ben, and that show is Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. So this is from the creator of The West Wing and starring the late great Matthew Perry in his first TV role since Friends. This was Sorkin's attempt at portraying the behind the scenes of a fictional late night entertainment sketch show based very strongly on Saturday Night Live. Perry starred as Matt Albee, a former addict who's the head writer of the show and still a bit of a loose cannon and a risk. And his best friend / producer is Danny Tripp, played by Bradley Whitford from The West Wing as well. Now, on paper, this show should have been great, but it had one issue that many early reviews picked up on, and I kind of agree with, is that the sketch comedy parts of the show weren't actually very funny. And if you're writing a show about sketch comedy, the comedy actually needs to be funny. The drama going around like the TV station in the show, that was brilliant. That was pure Sorkin-esque, which you expected. All the material involving Matt and Danny struggling with their personal issues, the network, the cast members and each other, that was great. And look, generally, I love Sorkin's work, man. The West Wing is rightfully held up as one of the best shows of all time. I even saw Newsroom. Was it the News? Yeah, Newsroom was brilliant as well. Newsroom was superb. That had 3 seasons. Again, that was sadly cancelled before its time. I even managed to watch Sports Night back in the day, which, again, I don't even know how I acquired that back in the day. And that was really good. As much as I like Studio 60, though, I can see why it got cancelled, because for me, the tone was all over the place. Sometimes you get a bit too political, but hey, that's what you get with Sorkin. And also, it felt a bit too preachy sometimes. But it's a perfect example of a show that, had it been given a second season, I'm sure it would have found its feet in an audience, and who knows where the show could have gone. The other issue for this as well, at the same time it came out on NBC, the home of Saturday Night Live, former Saturday Night Live head writer Tina Fey comes out with her sitcom, 30 Rock, which was based on the same behind the scenes of a late night Saturday Night Live style show. And of course, getting the former head writer of Saturday Night Live to do this, it's going to feel a lot more authentic and also be a lot more funny. And sadly for Studio 60, 30 Rock was much funnier and also only 22 minutes an episode and not about a full hour like Studio 60 was. But Studio 16, Ben, what could have been?
I mean, like it had legs. But it not only was Matthew Perry riding high on the coming out of the back end of Friends and the movies he did with Bruce Willis, like the whole
9 Yards,
I think it was. He the ensemble cast was phenomenal. I mean, is it Bradley Whitford, who you don't know his name, but you've seen him in so many different things. Their friendship for me was the thing that drove the show. Oh, and honestly, 100%. I didn't care that the comedy wasn't funny in the sketches, because for me it wasn't about the sketches. It was just about that was like dressing,
Yeah.
It was about what was going on behind the scenes, and I think that was lost. And I think the fact that people wanted this, because I mean, there's no way they didn't know that 30 Rock was being made. There's absolutely no way. So they wanted to make a different animal entirely. And people, the people watching it just were like, well, you have to, this bit needs to be better and that bit needs to be better, but missing the point of the whole show, which was, friendship under pressure. And how do you work in a cutthroat industry like TV and still maintain any semblance of normality? I just think it was brilliantly done. And I completely agree. Had it had a second season, they would have screwed down on the parts that worked. And it would have been glorious. They would have got some comedy writers in maybe to write the comedy stuff. But what do you do when your budget's pulled? Fucking nothing.
Anyone else watch Studio 60 or aware of the show? No.
I was a 30 Rock fan.
You can be both, Jose. You can be both.
Not either or. It's such an American tone of take on that.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, is that what he has to say, Jose?
This brings us to our number 2. That was stitched together fine. I think this appeared on quite a few of our lists, which is why it obviously is number 2.
Really?
And that show is Glow. Yes, Netflix's gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling show, which ran for 3 seasons and was promised a 4th and final season, and then COVID happened and Netflix decided to renege on their deal, and we never got a conclusion to the story. And I think that's what annoyed fans more, is the way they took away the promise of an ending to the story. But firstly, what is Glow? Well, in the 80s, there was an actual gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling show, and many of the performances were actresses and models rather than sportswomen. Liz Flahav and Carly Mensch had seen the 2012 documentary about the original 80s Glow, and that sparked their idea for the show. The central conceit of the show and the main two stars of the show were Alison Brie's Zoya the Destroyer, an even Russian-style heel, the bad guy in wrestling terms, and Betty Gilpin's all-American face, the good guy, Liberty Bell. Best friends out of the ring, in the first episode at least, until we find out that Brie's character has been having an affair with Gilpin's husband, which nicely sets a path for these two characters to progress on with. Mark Merrin is also in there as great as the promoter of the Glow, Sam Silver. It had a top 80s soundtrack with banger after banger, and of course, for me, it was about wrestling, which we all know I'm a big fan of. I'm assuming the planned season 4 would have seen Betty Gilpin's character get more involved in the network side of TV things, because that was kind of hinted at the end of season 3. And it also looked like Ruth's character was more going to get involved in the behind the scenes of the booking and the planning of the show, maybe directing as well. So, who wants to pile drive a Netflix executive?
Oh, this show is so good. I mean, I love that they incorporated a lot of the side characters so well. Like, it took a while for them to be more involved, but eventually they kind of found their way. So I think that's what I really enjoyed, is that, like many shows that aren't good, they don't incorporate the side characters as well. And so when you do that, you create a reason for the people watching to really want to watch more.
Yeah, what the show did well, it built out the side characters as it went on. It gave them plots and storylines. You start with your key characters and then build out. TV 101, good TV 101 anyway. Ben. Glow.
Loved it. So I've only watched the first season, and like I was all in. I don't know what happened. I got sidetracked by something else, and it's one that I've meant to go back to time and time again. But that first season is like perfect television. Like it's got action, but you don't even realize it because of the wrestling. Like it's got comedy because of like the stylings of the especially Alison Brie. I mean, like a wonderful actor. And it's got drama. Like it comes out of the gate, like it comes out hot, and it was brilliant. Yeah, I can't believe that I mean, I'm lucky I get to watch 2 more seasons, but it doesn't resolve. So I'm just like, fuck. Do I really want to go on that journey?
It kind of has a resolution to the season. Like they kind of knew they tied up a lot of the threads of that season for free. But I think that, like I mentioned, we were told we were getting 4, and then they decided not to because
I would say this is one of the few shows that didn't end on a cliffhanger. That if knowing ahead of time, you're okay with the way it ends. It's like,
there's a
you're
few loose
threads.
There's a few loose threads, and they definitely do tease the following season a bit, which is said it's like a bit of a letdown.
But Marie, big fan of Glow?
Yeah, I mean, it was number 6 on my list. But I also really enjoyed the show, and I thought it was a very underrated show. Not many people were actually like knew about it and was watching it. Maybe also the reason for the Netflix cancellation. And also one thing it also did, it like made me watch the original documentary after I finished season 1. And it also made me fall in love in the world of women's wrestling. I thought that was just like such a cool story, and they did such a great job of adapting it. And yeah, it was one of those, like the main cast was good, the ensemble cast were good, and it also was, really, really funny. There were just some really great moments there. And it's like, I wouldn't, I still say, there was a room for a final season.
Yeah.
I mean, because I did think season 3 would be the last one, but then they kind of teased it in the final episode, and I was just like, oh, we're getting more. Great. And then, it was.
David, did you ever watch Glow?
Yeah, I watched the first season like Ben. I mean, it didn't make my list. I wasn't as big a fan of it as you guys were, but I think for me, what I liked most about the show was the ensemble, like Marie mentioned. I think the chemistry between the cast was amazing, and I think the more heartfelt stories behind the main story was good. It just didn't. I mean, I don't know why I didn't watch the second season. There's no real reason I didn't. It just didn't.
But what I liked is how they kind of work, like you say, when I worked in the summer. Like I didn't realize Kate Nash is like a famous pop singer.
Really?
I just thought I didn't know I'd never heard of her though, and then she was like in the show. I was like, oh, she's just this British actress.
No, I didn't know either.
Yeah, she's like a really well known pop singer. And then who was the other character?
Apparently not that well known.
Well, ish. You know, mate, you're in the industry. And then Kia Stevens, who played Tammy Dawson. She's the only like proper pro wrestler woman in it. And she was on the verge of retirement in her actual career because just like injuries and because like the size she was, the bumps she'd taken over the years and like the wear and tear. But they kind of I think they got her on as like a consultant. And then she basically made a comeback out of it. I think she turned up in like the Women's Royal Rumble at like WWE one year because of on the back of the show. And like there was a few little tie-ins they did with the show, but it never really kind of got to that stage, sadly, because I don't think the show was, like you say, promoted or was big enough, sadly.
For me, like the last like 5 years or so, there's been like just a bunch of wrestling like stuff with like Zac Efron's.
Again, that was just a year ago.
It was a year ago. So like, was it? So in that case, is Glow then maybe the inspiration for this stuff like kicking off?
Forerunner.
That's interesting.
I mean, on Netflix right now, the one of the number one, I think it's like the number 3 show is the documentary about Vince McMahon, who used to own WWE and then was exposed as a massive sex pest and not a very nice person.
I saw the first episode of that. It's pretty good.
I think the thing is,
on TV.
I think the thing is, if you don't know anything about wrestling or Vince McMahon, you'll be shocked by this documentary. If you've been a fan, you know there's nothing new in it, or at least there's nothing new I've seen so far. But I think like WWE is going to Netflix in January, so it's going to be massive. It's going to be bigger than you ever think it's going to be before now. You know, so. Right. If you think it's big now, it's going to get even bigger when every one of the next fit accounts can watch it. There'll be no pay-per-views anymore. It's just all going to be on there, all their content. I wouldn't be surprised if they have their own button on the side of.
Have they gotten rid of the WWE, like the whole streaming service then? Because they had their own service.
Gone. Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's going to be going as well.
Okay.
Well, why not when Netflix are paying you like $7 billion or something crazy like that for 5 years?
Oh man, this is going to suck me back in.
It's just going to be there on the homepage, David. It's been a long journey. And we're finally at the conclusion. And there's not really any surprise, is there? If you've heard us talk on other episodes, the only surprise will be that one of the people on the podcast isn't a fan of the show that's made our number one.
Who is
and
it?
That'll be No. We can't name and shame yet, Jose. Can't name and shame yet. Yet. So what more can be said for our number one show? Yes, that show is Joss Whedon's, before he became problematic, Firefly. A sci-fi action western comedy, space drama, everything, all the words. It's almost the default answer to a generation of people when we ask what show was cancelled too soon. And the correct answer for that generation of people is always Firefly. Coming off the 1-2 punch of Buffy and Angel, Firefly was Whedon's first run at a sci-fi show. The problem was it was on Fox. And famously, Fox didn't like the extended pilot episode that, introduces all the characters and sets out what the show is, instead choosing to start with the second episode, The Train Job, because they felt it was a bit faster paced and more actiony than the pilot. Of course, if you were watching the show when it first aired, you wouldn't have had a clue what the hell was going on either. At its core, Firefly was a sci-fi action comedy drama that followed Nathan Fillion's Captain Mal Reynolds, who was on the losing side of an intergalactic civil war, his side being the Browncoats, and his crew on his ship, the Serenity. His crew consisted of wartime friend Gina Torres from Angel, as Zoe, his second-in-command, who was married to Wash, Alan Tudyk's comic relief pilot. Morena Baccarin is Inara, a companion, so basically a space floozy, who rents a shuttle and works from there with her clients, and has a strong will they won't they vibe with Mal. Adam Baldwin was Jane Cobb, a mercenary and the muscle who absolutely would turn on you and betray you for the right price. Jules State was Kaylee, the ship's mechanic, known for a sunny outlook and also massive crush on Sean Mars, Dr. Simon Tam, a passenger they pick up in the pilot. Plus, you always need a doctor on a spaceship. And in the pilot, we find that Simon has smuggled his sister, River, played by Summer Glau, onto the ship, who he'd freed from an alliance, the bad guys, Black Site, where she'd been experimented on, giving her powers. Finally, we had Ron Glass as Shepherd Book, a religious man who definitely had an unexplained backstory that sadly never got revealed. Although there was a comic called The Shepherd's Tale that filled in his backstory, if you want to know. Now, the show was the crew of the Serenity basically getting into scrape after scrape, sometimes not even having enough money to buy fuel to get to the next planet, and it was frequently and always hilarious. We loved these characters because the show took its time nicely spinning out the larger arcs that luckily we did get resolved in the film Serenity, like where the Reavers come from and what all the experiments from River are about. But at the end of the day, we were lucky we could get an end to the story in Serenity. But it's always been a case of Firefly of what could have been an epic, long-running show. Instead, we only got 14 episodes. Yes, 14, and only 12 have even fucking aired. Like the first time most of us in the UK saw the end of Firefly was when we bought the DVD, which made them a shit ton of money and actually got the film made because of the DVD sales. So there is still a place for physical media. Yes, streamers, there is. And yes, there is a place in the special hell for the Fox execs who cancelled Firefly. The special hell. Jose, this was your number one, as it was mine. Go. What do you want to say about Firefly, man?
I mean, if you look at my top 10, it's a combination of everything that I enjoyed. Sci-fi with different shows, space, cowboys. It really combined them all well. But really what it came down to was Nathan Fillion and all his supporting cast. Everything. They were all so well acted and they really gelled very well together. But Nathan Fillion was like the lead that really made it happen.
Ben.
I mean, there's not enough time. We need to do an entire episode on this season. Not only was this show cancelled, it was cancelled halfway through a season. Like 14 episodes. So it was cancelled halfway through a season. Like that is criminal in itself. The things that I love about this show are Inara's is it, I can never say her name right, Marina Baccarin. Help me out here, guys. Thank you. Is it just Baccarin? All right, that's easy. Marina Baccarin.
Deadpool's girlfriend.
Deadpool's girlfriend. Her one of the little twists that I loved was they are a crew of smugglers, and she rents a shuttle that attaches to this ship, and she is actually she plays a prostitute, but that is the only legitimate work. So prostitution is legal, and when they come to a planet, she's got loads of legitimate work lined up. She goes off to be a prostitute, and it's done really well. And they then go along, and they're the smugglers. They're doing the dirt, the deals that are getting them the money for the fuel or stuff. But they're a crew with a conscience as well. You think one episode that they're smuggling gold, and then it turns out when they actually go to sell it, it's food. Because it's wrapped in wrapped up to look like gold bricks.
Medicine? Was that medicine? That was a medicine one, wasn't it? Not food.
No. Is it the medicine? I don't know. No, it's because they say that they're bricks in that episode, okay. And they're stamped Alliance bricks, and then they go to that planet where there's going to be there's a trap waiting for them, and Jane's got his fucking sniper rifle, and the woman that he's selling them to opens one up and eats one. And it's like, oh yeah, they're good bricks, they're a crew with the conscience. And I remember the inspiration behind it when interviewed. It was like, what happens when you think about a crew in space? When you think about the Millennium Falcon. So imagine a bunch of smugglers on the Millennium Falcon, just roving through space, just trying to make ends meet.
If a Star Wars show was literally just following around the Millennium Falcon on their smuggling runs. That was kind of the idea, wasn't it?
And it was clever because they had when you get to what they call the edge of space, they had the Reavers, which were these inhuman humanoids that would
space cannibals.
Space cannibals that would cut their own flesh up and destroy ships, so they barely worked, and they would have radiation poisoning, and they would tear apart. And in the season, you never saw them. But just the way that people talked about them and the way it was acted around these Reavers, you were scared of them as watching the show. Genius.
Jane, the big tough mercenary guy. It's the only time he looks scared in the whole series is when they mention the Reavers, and you're like, oh shit, if he's scared.
Yeah, he wants to fight anybody, but if he runs and he turns and runs and fucking it's a big bad. But having there was clearly a story for them, and the movie gives you what is fucking fantastic backstory on the Reavers, genius level. So everything comes together to create the ensemble cast. The cast are fucking phenomenal, and they've all gone on to do really great stuff. But they are all incredible in this. They, the story was clearly planned out way beyond the first season, as because there's comics and the movie and stuff. So it was really well thought out, and it was a lot of love. I think a lot of a lot of like a genuine like care put into this show that, you know, mixed perfectly space with a Western, because the further out in space with the central planets you get, the more people like have a little bit of
Outlaws.
technology. Yeah, you have a little bit of technology, but they're like terraforming planets, so they look like the Wild West because they're just becoming planets. So it was just really, really well put. It was a thinking person's sci-fi show, you know.
But it was also really funny. It was so funny in every episode. I mean, there's a
But,
bit
I mean,
where
when he kicks that guy into the fucking jet engine,
yeah.
and moves on to the next one. Yeah. It's
Right.
just.
Are you going to tell me what you want to? There's a bit where Jane's trying to shoot someone who's been drugged, and he shoots a guy in like the arm or something. And he goes, oh, good shot. He goes, what do you mean? I missed. I was aiming for his head. It's like things like that, you know. When Mal accidentally doesn't realize a local customer, he ends up getting married.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
the priest character just keeps going, you don't take advantage of that girl. You're going to go to the special hell. Then he just pops his head back around the corner. He's like, the special hell. And like it was just the humor. It was so good. And there's so many big actors as well. That was the girl from Mad Men. Before she became famous from Mad Men, she was in that.
Oh yeah.
Christina Hendricks. That was it.
All
But
right.
yeah. Right, now for a bit of counterpoint. Someone who didn't love Firefly with all their heart.
Ooh.
Marie.
Yeah, this wasn't on my list at all. I
Someone get the airlock.
I never gelled with the series. I did like the movie a lot better than I did like the series, but I don't think I even ever finished the series. I do not know. I did the whole like I watched Buffy, I watched Angel, and then I thought, okay, the next step was to watch Firefly. And maybe because the legacy of it was just too big, it just did not live up to my expectations. Found it kind of boring. And
Wow.
yeah, it's just didn't click. I did like the ideas of the concepts, and maybe that's why I enjoyed the movie more. I did like the whole idea behind the Reavers and the whole conclusion that led to that was really good, and I really like that story. But the rest, yeah, it wasn't for me. Maybe I'll give it another go as an adult, because like as a teenager, it didn't click at all. But yeah,
How far did you get into it?
I think I did see like 7 episodes.
Okay.
That's a good way.
Like, I mean, I give something a very long time before I
Hmm.
move on.
I mean, Firefly was 2002.
That's
So
very dated.
I just wonder, like, friend of the pod, Stu does a Stu World Order podcast. He does retro Buffy reviews, having watched it and really enjoyed it when I think he watched it and his wife watched it and really enjoyed it when it was first on. He never watched it, so he's rewatching it with his wife, and his reviews are hilarious because looking at Buffy through a modern lens, it's so problematic in a lot of ways. So I just hope that Firefly isn't the same way. But knowing what Joss Whedon is like now, it's kind of, I almost don't want to go back and have it sullied by overanalyzing it too much.
I've rewatched it recently. I
good.
rewatched Firefly consistently. There's no problems and that I can see with it. Like there's no. I mean, they skirt like sort of like racial harmony is probably the wrong word, but like where they use the two biggest superpowers in the world when it sort of like fell apart would have been America and China. So they've mashed those two languages together.
The Chinese insults. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so there's Chinese like swear words and stuff in there and insults, but there's also like so they describe stuff. And if you look at all the signs in the background, there's a mix of like Chinese and like Western like language.
Yeah, there was that big melding of the two, wasn't there, for the future for the production design of the show. And also they said swearing in Chinese meant they could get it past the censors.
Yeah. But it was really clever. And I mean, like there was like there's a lot of stuff in that show that I don't know, it was safe whilst also like exploring things that you want to explore, like what's it like to be a smuggler when you're on the wrong side of the law, but you are on the wrong side of the law for moral reasons. Like that was the part of it that like was really interesting to me. There was a strong moral code on that ship, whereas like it's like again, it's that the Star Wars comparison is there because there's like the rebels, they're the rebellion technically when you look at the news now, the rebels are the bad guys, and the governments would be the empire. So like the alliance, which was the empire, were the bad guys from their point of view. But the alliance are just trying to like terraform planets and make everybody live under their rules so they can have like civilization. So yeah, like I really love that kind of the exploration that you like morally. If you're driven morally, are you more right than like a bigger overarching government?
Nice, man.
I mean, I'm punk rock. I'm always going to say yes.
David, you have not chipped in on this one. Yes.
Well, to be honest, I watched it when I was about 15, maybe 15.
2002 it came out, so
yeah. I mean, I'm 32 now, so it was a while back. I can't really remember all that much of it. I just remember the chemistry between the crew being amazing, and I remember being invested in the world that was created within like 3 episodes, and that's pretty much it. That's all I can remember. I can remember it being what it's like Heroes for me. It was like the potential of being one of the greatest shows ever if it wasn't so mismanaged. It's a potential for me. That's,
I mean, like we say, showing
kicker.
it out of order, and I think the problem is, I do think, and I can kind of take Marie's point on, like the pilot episode is a little slow to get going because it has to introduce all the characters and set them up. And so I can see, I'm not that I'm ever defending a Fox exec, but if you look at the train job, which is the second episode, and it's just boom, straight into action, bar fights, spaceships, cattle, actual cattle they were transporting in that one, which is like the twist at the end when you get to the end of the cargo bay and you imagine this treasure and it's actual cows. That was brilliant.
I would just like to say one thing in terms of like how the show holds up. I'm kind of a fan of YouTube where I watch people reacting to movies and TV shows. It's kind of like an easy thing while I work. And one of the most popular series I think is Firefly. They'll watch the series and then they'll cap it with watching the movie. And that's like something that has happened even more recently, I think, with new people getting back into that show because there's some young viewers out there who didn't really know anything about it. And I think it's one of those things where you see their reactions and they make it through and they have a very positive experience. I wouldn't say they agree with some of us who watched it as it came out, but I feel like they usually tend to enjoy the show and the movie. And then obviously some characters, don't make it all the way through, and then they are sad when they pass away. So I feel like it may not be as like you said, it has a lot to live up to, but I feel like if you just go into it as a show that you wanted to enjoy, I think it's possible to do that.
Oh, he's gone. Oh, excellent. Right. We're in charge, team. What
do we get away with?
We can say anything we want. He won't interrupt us. Amazing.
I want to mention one show that I had on my list as number 10, but he didn't put it in the notes.
Tell us, Jose. What is it? Don't let him cut you. Don't let Neil censor you.
It's the show I Am Not Okay With This. It was on Netflix for 1 season.
Cancelled. It's over, Jose. No, cut. You cannot put someone in after 1. Well, perfect timing there. And I'd like to thank my co-hosts for joining here today. I'd like to thank Marie.
Oh, we're ending abruptly. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank David.
Thank you, my man.
I'd like to thank Ben.
Read it out.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Just hold it a little bit lower. And I'd like to thank Jose.
I Am Not Okay With This stars Sophia Lillis as Sydney Novak.
No. And don't forget, if you enjoyed what you've seen today, you can see this, or you've been watching it on YouTube. It's been a long pod and that didn't make any sense. Golf clap. Golf clap for everyone. Well done, everyone. Well done, everyone. David stayed awake for about 90% of it.
My God, you have no idea how challenging that was.
Jose didn't eat anything. I mean,
it's no reflection on the content.
He did. I saw him eat something. He definitely ate something.
Multiple things.
Yep.
I drank 3 different drinks as well.
Every now and then you just see
Was
the
one of them your
thing
own
go into
urine?
Jose's mouth.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
Two
Right.
very different comments right there.
And don't forget, if you like the podcast, give us a like and subscribe, like the kids say, on YouTube where you have been watching this episode. And of course, we are still available on all audio platforms, on your podcast platforms of choice. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're generally everywhere. You can't escape us. And also, since then, we have been nominated for an award at the Independent Podcast Awards for Golf Clap for Ben, no, Big Clap for Ben, and for our friend Phil, who isn't here but has never been on the podcast, for doing our theme music. Yes, we have been nominated for Best Theme Song at the Independent Podcast Awards. And hopefully by the time this comes out, or maybe very shortly afterwards, we'll know whether we won or not. Will we have to make speeches? Will we have to go on stage? Will anyone else bar me actually be there? At the minute, no.
I definitely won't. I'm gonna record my acceptance speech and send it to you, so they have to play it on that big video screen.
I can also
Brilliant.
do that if yes.
No, David, because you're in the country and you don't have an excuse. You're in Norwich.
Also,
Not home.
Also, out of the two of us, only one of us actually wrote it. So
I know, right? I'll accept it on your behalf. It's fine. It's great to be. It's great to be here. Sorry, Ben can't be. He's in LA on his way to Australia, wrangling rock stars. It's all written. It's all good to go, man.
love it.
And that's all the time we have today on this episode of the We Need Roads podcast. We'll see you next time, folks.
We Needed Roads.